Good evening. It is 6:30. Members of council are assembled when you're ready to begin.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order this Committee of the Whole meeting of the Council of the Town of Saugeen Shores. Welcome all members and everyone joining us by the live stream this evening. We're glad everybody's with us. Second item on the agenda is the land acknowledgement, and Councillor Halpin has that this evening.
We acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional lands and treaty territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, which consists of the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of Nawash Unceded First Nation. We understand this land holds immense significance to the people of Saugeen Ojibwe Nation. We appreciate those who live and work alongside us today and who continue the traditions of their ancestors as stewards of the land we are privileged to inhabit. We thank them for the contributions that they have made in both caring for the land and shaping this community. We commit to truth and reconciliation, to acknowledging the truth about what happened to Indigenous peoples because of colonization, and to reconciliation, which begins with each and every one of us. As a local government and public organization, we are dedicated to learning about Indigenous culture, to fostering a better relationship with First Nations and their people, and we commit ourselves to actions that move us forward on a path to healing along with the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation.
Thank you. The third item on the agenda is disclosure of pecuniary interest. Ask any member if you have one of those you'd like to declare at this time. Seeing none, of course, you can do that anytime if you need to. We have no additions, deletions, or amendments. We have no open forum. We do have 3 delegations this evening, and I'll just remind all of our delegations that council's allotted 10 minutes for each of our delegations, so we'd appreciate it if you'd hew closely to that timeline. We have a lot on our agenda this evening. So the first delegation is a kind of a different one. It's from Walter Malcolm, who is the president and chief executive officer of Westario Power, and from me as chairman of the board of Westario Power, and also this council's representative on the board. So we'll bring up the presentation, and maybe I'll say a couple of words and then turn things over to Wally. So Wally and I have been on a bit of a roadshow. We're just getting started here, going to each of the shareholders to talk about Westario Power and give an update on its activities, investments it's making in infrastructure and operations. Wally's going to take us through that presentation. The bottom line is that our shareholders are important to us, and we want to make sure that all the municipalities, as well as Fortis Ontario, who's a 10% shareholder in the company, are well informed of everything that's happening with your company. So with that, I'll turn things over to Wally, and he'll take us through the presentation, and then I'll be available along with him afterwards to answer any questions you may have. Wally.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council and guests. Westario Power, your local hydro utility. We currently service 15 communities with a staff of 41 people to do all that work throughout the 15 communities. The human resources, as you can see with the 41 employees, the majority are unionized employees. We do have 1 person on leave, that's a maternity leave, and we do have 2 on contract. One is a co-op student and the other one is to fill in for that maternity leave. Human resources over the past year in 2023 was a lot of positions needed to be filled. And as you can see on the list here, these were the positions that we needed to fill in 2023. Some of these positions, you will see that the date it was posted and the date that we actually filled the position took a period of time. It's a struggle that Westario finds with the service territory that we're in and trying to attract local people as well as people to Westario Power. So it is a struggle, and I'm sure other municipalities are facing the same thing. Training is very important at Westario Power. Safety is #1 and our first priority. This is a list of the training that we completed in 2023 to ensure that our staff are up to date on safety and wellness, as well as any other certifications that they require to do their jobs effectively. We do have a joint health and safety committee that is very active in our company in regards to going around and making sure that our workplace is safe. The Joint Health and Safety Committee is small but mighty. They do go out regularly, and they do meet regularly on a monthly basis to ensure the safety of our staff. So we have 2 line workers and 1 operations clerk as a worker representative, and we have our executive assistant and our health and safety administrator on that Joint Health and Safety Committee. Reliability. Customers are always questioning about reliability. They want to make sure that when they get home and they can turn on the lights, they can cook their meals. We're proud to say that over the past year, our reliability has improved at Westorio Power. The outages, major outages went down by 9%. The time duration and the frequency has also gone down by -3% and -10%. So that holds well for our customers to ensure that reliable power is there for when they need it. Some of the major projects that we undertook over the past and are currently working on today, distribution station rehabilitation. So our stations, no different than a wastewater station that you may see in municipalities. We have to maintain that. They do reach their end of life, and we have to upgrade them. We have some extensions in Walkerton that have to take place. We have an underground rebuild in Kincardine, and we're doing some station tie work in Walkerton as well. Last year, we completed one of our substations in Port Elgin, our MS number 1. So that was completed last year and just went online just last month. So we're very proud that the fact that we take the money that we are making and reinvesting into our system to ensure that reliable power is available to us. Full line rebuilds, underground and feeder ties are the major improvements that we see that are necessary in our service territory. Maintenance, what we noticed was that tree trimming was lacking at Westorio Power. So we went reactive to proactive by hiring a contractor to go in on a 3-year cycle to make sure that trees that are interfering, if you see on the left-hand side, it's fully engulfed into our lines. When the wind starts to blow, that starts smacking up against our lines, which causes those momentary outages that you see throughout the year. By doing our patrols and making sure that we cut back these trees, we're ensuring that reliability. So when you've seen the statistics improving, one of that is the storms have a major impact on us, but tree is the second part that has a lot of impact on our service territory. Revenue and expenses. Our revenue side, we've actually increased our profit by $1 million over the past year. We did a lot of work with the board of directors in regards to priority setting and making sure that we are investing in the right areas. And that has resulted in some improvements in our operations, which yielded a better profit for us to reinvest into our system. It just gives you a breakdown of the majority of our sales come from electricity sales. Those sales are not what we take in. We have to pay that back to the generator. So people like Bruce Power, they are the ones that are the recipient of this part of the revenue. Operating expenses, the majority is administration and general administration, but the maintenance and billing and collecting is also a key component of our expenses that we face year in, year out. Cost of service application. So every 5 years, all the local distribution companies in Ontario have to go in through a cost of service application to the Ontario Energy Board. This year is our turn to face the Ontario Energy Board and ask for rates for the next 5 years. So we've applied for that. We went through the process of submitting our application last November. The Ontario Energy Board, along with interveners, sent us questions in January and into the first week of February. We received 150 plus questions in regards to our application. We needed to respond by last Friday, which we did. We do have a settlement conference with the Ontario Energy Board and the interveners scheduled for next week, March 6th, 7th, and 8th. And that will be part of the process of them vetting our application to make sure that what we've submitted makes sense and is of the benefit to not only Westorio, but to our customers as well. If you look at the chart itself, that $2.55 per month increase works out to about 1.97% increase on our residential rates. And for the general service customer, an average general service customer would be about 5.9% increase if our rates are approved as we applied. Dividend policy, very important to municipal shareholders. We asked for half of the dividend to be retained back into the corporation to help with our system improvements. We're happy that the municipalities agreed to that, but we are looking at reinstating the full dividend moving forward starting in 2025. So you would see that coming up, but that's all subject to the board of directors and how our operations are moving forward. Electricity rates, the Ontario government has introduced a new rate. It's an ultra low overnight program rate. Part of that is to assist with electric vehicle adoption. So when people buy and use electric vehicles, they want to charge at home overnight. There's an incentive to charge overnight because that's the least amount of power that's being used within Ontario. So there's a reduced rate. The trade-off is between 4 o'clock and 9 o'clock when it's one of the highest usage in the province of Ontario. Those customers that do go to the ultra low will be paying a premium on that time of use rate during that 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. So there is a balance and customers have to make their decision as to what works for them based on the loading at the time in their household. So with the ultra low, we can say as of February, we've had 15 customers sign up for the ultra low. So there's 15 people that obviously have an electric vehicle at home that want to subscribe to this. We're seeing a slow uptake on this new rate, but I think people have to get comfortable with the rate structure and understand what it means for them. There's a number of support programs, and I'll go to the next slide, for our customers. There's an arrears management plan that if customers are struggling with their bills, they can contact Ontario Power and we'll make arrangements for them to help ease that load and look at payment options for them. Low Income Energy Assistance Program is a one-time deal that we help support. So if a customer are struggling for one of their bills for one of the months, this will help them offset that cost for the bill for that month to keep things moving along. Community engagement. Ontario Power always believes in reaching out to our communities and assisting wherever we can. We look at Touch of Trucks. We supported the Saugeen Valley Children's Safety Village, and we participated in a Santa Claus parade in Walkerton. And these are a list of the other areas that we've sponsored and donated within our service territory. I know it's a quick rundown, but the 10 minutes, I hope that gives you an overview of Ontario Power, and I'm open to any questions that you may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Wally. Are there questions or comments from members of the committee? The Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, and through you, thank you very much for the presentation. Just a question. There's always confusion about what Ontario serves and doesn't serve in Saugeen Shores. I know you went through the slides quite quickly, and I believe you kind of jumped over the one that had the work that happened in Southampton north of the river. So if you could just, for the benefit of the public who might be listening and for all of us, indicate the service area that you have in Saugeen Shores and perhaps highlight the pole replacement that happened at the north end of Southampton, which you did mention in a slide, but it was very specific to our community. Thank you.
Yes, through the mayor. So Port Elgin obviously is a big part. Southampton is a big part, but we're surrounded by Hydro One as well. So what we can do is on our website, we do have a map of our service territory. So if customers are looking for which area we service, we can provide that information to them. Unfortunately, I didn't bring that with me, so I can't pull it up on the screen to show the boundaries because there are a variety of scattered areas with Hydro One.
Okay. Further questions or comments? Oh, the Vice Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Luke, and Walter. Thanks so much for your presentation. And I just a couple questions, a couple comments. First of all, thanks to thank you to you and your staff for the excellent service that you do provide to Saugeen Shores. And you talk about a 9% drop in outages. That's, considering the severity of our winter summer storms, having a drop by 9%, I think is a real good thing and testament to the condition of our infrastructure. And I guess talk about just talk a little bit about the dividends, if I might, Walter. You talked about municipalities, the shareholders agreeing to the half dividend decrease for infrastructure improvements. And that's a good trade-off in my view. I mean, I'd like to see that $150,000 per year in a dividend payment, but I think investing in our infrastructure is pretty darn important, and that seems to be what you're doing. But my recollection was we lost 100% of our dividend the last 2 years. Is that correct? I don't know if that's the question of Jim or you, but did we actually lose 50% of our dividend, or was it 100% the last 2 years?
No, it was 50%. The board decided to reduce the dividends by half.
Okay, I just recall in our budget, I thought the hit was greater than that, but that's not the case, no? Okay.
That's not the case. No, we had
Okay, thanks.
half of our previous dividend.
Thank you for that. The 2025, you're suggesting that we could return then to the full dividend payment? Is that what I heard?
Yeah, through the mayor, yes, that's what we're looking at. We've made a commitment to our board of directors with the results from the past year, from 22 to 23, we're meeting our bank covenants. That was another holdup for us as well. So since we're holding up our bank covenants and the extra revenue that we've achieved through our efficiencies through the organization, our recommendation moving forward is to go back to that 100%. It's based on when we present that to the board of directors, and if they feel comfortable with that based on our capital program as well.
Right. And that will be good news for our 2025 budget. And just one final question, if I may, Mr. Mayor. The increase in your bottom line profit of $1 million was good news. And there was a line in your budget, if I might, Walter, was that in the 2022, your administrative and general expenses were $4.4 million. And in 2024, the budget is $3.5 million. So it's a decrease of $900,000. That's your profit was $1 million. Where were you able to find that?
With the number of positions that we had at Westerio Power and the turnover that we've seen, you've seen a reduction in the administrative costs for expenses for like my position itself is a lot lower than what you would have seen with the previous president and CEO. We had some vacant positions as well that were not part of that. And so that's where the efficiencies came on the staff costing side.
Significant savings, 900 grand in 1 year. Well, thanks again for your great work, and pass on our thanks to all the Westerio staff who work so hard outside and in sometimes very inclement weather, and they do a fabulous job for our town in my view. So thank you.
I appreciate that. I'll make sure that gets passed on.
Thank you. Are there further comments or questions from members? Councilor Davinsky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to Walter, thank you very much for your presentation. It was interesting reading. I've got two questions that are a little outside the boundary. So one is, every once in a while, a rumor, an underlying rumor, so that there's no story going out saying this is fact, it's rumor, props up saying Westerio is on the market to be sold. And maybe that's happened in the past. Is it on the market right now? Are you getting offers to sell the facility?
So maybe I'll field that one. So right now, the focus of the board, and there has been some turnover Wally's alluded to some of that. Wally's actually, I introduced him as president and CEO. He's our interim president and CEO because there's been turnover at the staff level and some issues in terms of just getting us back on track in terms of investing in infrastructure. So that's really been the focus. of the board for the last couple of years. And so there hasn't been what I would call a concerted turn of attention to longer term strategic planning like that, right? So I guess what I would say is if there were to be merger or acquisition talk or something that was going to come up that was serious, that was going to go somewhere, our shareholders would be engaged. Folks like around here would be engaged. You would know about that before it became anything that was going to happen. So I guess so. So I think I hope that answers the question. It's you'll know when if and when something like that comes up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess my question is it happening in the background? Are you always open to that sort of thing?
I think that, I think it wouldn't be a good idea to talk about it out loud if it was happening in the background, but I think it's something that, as I say, won't proceed very far unless the shareholders are involved. So, Saugeen Shores is a 25% shareholder in the company, a major shareholder with a significant interest. And, the company, it's your company, our community's company, and it can't be sold without approval from our shareholders.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Walter, for that. The other one, I don't expect an answer tonight, but I thought I'd throw it out there and take advantage of the fact that both of you are here. There are poles, infrastructure poles, with wires attached behind the homes on Lake Street from Jerry's Fries southward to the pumping station or whatever it's called. And they're not being used because all of the infrastructure has been buried on Lake Street. And I wonder if those poles could be taken out to be better used elsewhere. You say you're replacing poles. I don't know. I'm not looking for an answer. I just wonder if you'd take that under consideration at the next board meeting or whatever.
Yeah, through the mayor, we'll take a look at that area. Typically, when we do line rebuilds and undergrounding, we do remove the infrastructure. So we'll take a look to see when that took place and see if it's actually Westerio's or if it's privately owned as well. That's a possibility that could be there. So we'll take a look at that for you.
Thank you, Walter. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Absolutely. Further questions or comments from members? I don't see any. Well, thanks again, Wally, for coming in and talking to us tonight. I would just reiterate what the Vice Deputy Mayor said. There's some outstanding staff working at Westerio Power doing incredible work every day in our community, as he said, in some pretty inclement weather, getting the power back on. And you can see based on the outage situation that we've had and the improvement, that's really just indicative of the quality work that they do, both in terms of maintenance and in terms of repair. So, that's, it's happening under your leadership and right from top to bottom in the organization. It's certainly been my experience since I've been there that it's a really tremendous organization full of great people. So thanks for coming in tonight and updating us about it.
Thank you very much.
So our next delegation is from Katie Rice, and she is here from the Port Elgin Rotary Club to talk to us about the Hello Summer Music Expo. Ms. Rice.
Good evening, Council. My name is Katie Rice, and I'm President-elect of the Port Elgin Rotary Club. And more importantly, today I'm here as Chair of the Hello Summer Committee. Last year, we had Hello Summer here in Port Elgin, which brought in excellent bands. We had an AC/DC tribute band and the Rec Claws, among other local bands. It was a great event, and we were able to raise mass amounts of money for local initiatives, and we would like to do that again this year. This year we have Blue Rodeo, the Trues, one night on, and then we have Kim Mitchell and Dean Brody the other night. This is over May 2-4 weekend, the 18th and the 19th. I'm here today, and I'll be frank because I want to cut back on time, to request free use of the Plex or have the fees waived for use of the Plex for this community event. This helps us as Rotarians with all the hard work that we have put in to have more proceeds go back into the community that we are supporting with the proceeds of this event.
Thank you very much. That was short and sweet. Thanks, Katie. So you've, there may be some questions or comments, but just to start with your request. So what our practice is we'll refer that to our staff and we'll get a report back and make a decision on that. I'm sure you'll want to hear back sooner than later, and I'm sure our staff can accommodate that. So we will get you an answer to that question at a subsequent meeting. Okay.
At a subsequent meeting, or can I get that via email or?
I'm not sure. Is it?
I'm actually unfamiliar with the
Will it
process
be a
of how to
decision
have this
by
go by
council?
as well.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I apologize. We don't have the Director of Community Services here with us tonight, but I believe there is authority for staff to approve it. I'm just looking to Lisa to confirm. So I think it can get referred to staff and we can approve it through the policy. Is that correct?
Yeah. Okay, so we'll get you an answer. Doesn't even have to come back to council. We'll get you an answer as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Are there questions or comments from members? Councillor Grace?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Katie. It's great to see you back in this room. Katie used to be a member of our Heritage Committee, a very valuable member. I just want to say thank you to the Port Elgin Rotary Club for your hard work and initiative in putting on such a great program. I think, are you doing what you did last year, also having activities for families during the daytime?
No, we are not. We are just focusing on the evening concert series. We did find that we had a lot of volunteer burnout last year,
Oh, yeah.
and we're just trying to stay more focused. And instead of having volunteers straight for 2 days,
Yeah,
morning, afternoon, and evening, we're just going to have afternoon and evening.
okay, that's great. And I just wanted to mention in your presentation, you talk about where this money is going, which I think is important to be specific about the variety of causes that Shore Club donates money to: the food bank, the hospice, women's house, town fireworks, scholarships at the high school, school breakfast programs, and other items. So that $102,000 that you donated last year went to really good causes. Thank you for your work.
Thank you. And the majority of those funds are directly from Hello Summer. Hello Summer is our heavy hitter fundraiser, and we count on it greatly to fulfill our commitments that we would like to make to various charities as well as community events and projects.
Very good. Are there further questions or comments? Councillor Davinsky?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Katie, thank you very much for your presentation. I'm just wondering, do you know, or does the club know how much you're asking for when you ask to have the fees waived here at the Plex?
I do not have an exact number, but I do have an approx number.
Okay, and what is that approximate number?
About $8,000 is
I'm sorry?
$8,000.
$8,000.
Yeah, is that about correct, Lisa? For use of, for about 7 days would be the total between the 2 days to lead up, to set up, the 2 days of the event, holiday Monday, and then the day after for cleanup.
Yes, through you. I think, yes, if we were to be applying the fees on all of those days, then yes, that would be accurate. For kind of the 2 days with the fees, it would be about $1,700 for the 2 days of physical concert.
Yes.
Okay, so we know what we're dealing with here, and as you say, Mr. Mayor, a report will be coming back from staff. Thank you, Katie.
Yeah, I
Thank you,
think
sir.
just to clarify that, Councillor, council has in the past delegated this authority to make these decisions to staff. So staff will receive this request and make a decision and does not have to return to council with a report.
Even better, thank you.
Yeah,
But we appreciate council's support
Sure.
in the event with your participation and seeing you guys at all of our Rotary events.
absolutely. Are there further questions or comments from members? I just wanted to say congratulations to you on just about being the president of the Port Elgin Rotary Club, or I don't know when the date is that you'll officially take over, but thank you for taking on that role. And it's a really important thing that we have folks like you doing those jobs. It's a big job, and Port Elgin Rotary is a really active club. I think we're going to have an awesome year this year. Tons of music, right, with this event, and then our own event in August. And I mean, we're going to have just a a lot of fun in our community all summer long, and a lot of it's thanks to the work of the Port Elgin Rotary Club. So thanks for your work, thanks to your board and your whole club, and we appreciate you coming in, and I know we'll look for ways to support you however we can.
Thank
So
you very
thank you.
much.
So our third and final delegation is from Gary Brown, and he's here to talk to us about Cruisers Cruise Night. Mr. Brown.
I don't need this, do I? I know, I was just kidding. Mr. Mayor, councilors, everybody in the room, thank you for having me here this evening. Normally Tracy, who was with me tonight, supported me from the foundation, sends a request written in for Cruisers Cruise Night. This year I wanted to do it in person because this is our 30th anniversary. I was a little younger when I started this. I'm requesting June, July, August, every Thursday evening, 4:30 to 9:30. And last year, Mother Nature kicked us in the butt, but we still raised over 8,000. This year, we are going to surpass $300,000 total for the Saugeen Memorial Hospital. Over the years, money raised has gone to purchasing a lot of equipment, and it's not a one-man show. It's not just me. It's like I said, the foundation, friends of the foundation, all my volunteers. And yeah, I want to thank the town over all these years for supporting Cruisers Cruise Night. All we do is go down, set up the barricades, park the cars, play some music, and raise as much money as we can for the hospital. So like I think we're at 287,000 and change at the end of last year. So this year it's going to be our 30th year, and we're going to surpass $300,000. So if I could get the support again this year, which I'm pretty sure I can, I'm hoping, I think, I would really, truly appreciate it. The vehicle owners absolutely love it down there. Members of our community, visitors to our community. It's just a nice little show on its own.
Thank you, Gary. And so once again, you've made a request, and this is one that we've had lots of times in previous years, and it'll be referred to staff. And I know they have the authority to make a decision on it. And I think that your sense of it is right, Gary. I suspect you're going to hear a positive response on that request. But let's hear what members of council have to say. Are there questions or comments from members, the deputy mayor and then the vice deputy mayor?
Thank you, and appreciate the very brief written report and the additional words. Certainly you did get hit by the weather last year. There's been interest from a number of different directions about the size that the event has grown. And I know that every now and again, there's consideration of a different venue, because there has been spillover onto some side streets that haven't been part of the actual sort of boulevard high street situation. And that causes a little bit of safety concern, particularly on Huron Street. So has there been any discussion about the potential to shift the location to a bigger spot, a spot that has a little more room? Because there seems to be some occasions when there is spillover that does affect some public safety on some streets nearby. Thank you.
We could ask staff and Mr. Brown if you have any comments too, but start with the CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Last year, we spent a lot of time as staff working directly with Gary and the team to ensure that the parking situation in relationship to this event was handled well. And I'm confident that we have an arrangement down there that manages the evening. And going forward, I don't see any concerns. I don't think we talked about relocating, but we did ensure with fire that we could adequately access the area, and that we have sort of mapped out where the cars will be parked, and we're confident that works going forward.
Any comments, Gary?
Yes, we did lose some parking areas. I conversed with our fire chief here. Thank you very much. And so we met the parameters that were required by the province. I did lose some parking spots, but on average, I can get between 80 and 100 vehicles down there. If the venue is what everybody likes, they've got the lake, they've got the boardwalk. They can walk up for dinner, they can walk up for ice cream. We're there for a few hours a night. Changing locations would basically kill the show in my 29 years of experience. The families that come down that don't have vehicles, they can put their kids on the beach. We've got everything down there. Again, they can feed them. The only thing we have to watch out for is kamikaze seagulls that take ice cream out of people's hands along with their French fries and that. But no, I think we're fine where we are. The problems have all been resolved. And yeah,
Okay. So I'll go to the Vice Deputy Mayor and then I'll come to Councillor Mayette.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Gary, when you think of your name, Gary Brown is synonymous with the Cruisers Cruise Night, and 30 years of doing this, just an incredible amount of time and effort you put into it, a lot of volunteer work, and I know you have a good committee. $300,000 later, I just want to really say thank you to you for all the great work you've done over 30 years, and you sat around this council table there one term, I think it was, and so it's just my hats off to you, Gary, for a great job. And yeah, Thursday night's Cruise Night is a highlight for many people, and I've attended many times, and it's just a really nice night out. So thanks, just really a thank you for the great work, Gary. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Mayette.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Gary, as a regular participant, I get to hang out with you down there, and I just want to show some support for what you're doing too. 30 years, it's great. $300,000 is going to be awesome, and it should be really celebrated. I think the location is ideal. Like you say, if you moved it, you'd be taking away a great deal of what people come down there for. So if you're ever looking for a reason to go to Southampton, this is a good one on Thursday nights. And so I like to go as much as I can. And there's going to be instances where there's not enough parking for all the cars that show up. There's going to be those nights. And I have been one of those people that got turned away because you're full. And if that's the way it is, that's the way it is. But I will try to get there as early as I can coming forward in the summer. And I'm really hoping to spend some quality time with you and your music walks and get some 50-50 draws going. And so keep up the good work. Thanks.
thank you.
Councillor Davinsky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Gary, for the presentation. I had the opportunity a few years back to MC Cruisers Night one Thursday night. And I can't remember the last time I had that much fun MCing. It was just a great time. The public was out. And I always asked people when I was out there, where are you from? Where are you from? And you'd be surprised where these people are coming from. The Brantfords, the Hamiltons, yes, Paisley and so on, but it brings the community together. And I'm going, like Councillor Mayette, I'm going to support this. It's an important part of Southampton on a Thursday night. You mentioned to a lot of Southampton residents, what's Thursday night? It's cruise night. That's what it is. That's all there is to it. Gary, keep up the good work. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there further questions or comments from members? I think it's been said pretty clearly, Gary. I think, and thank you. Once it's already been said, but I'll say it again. Thank you for all the work you've done for the last 30 years on it. It's an awesome event, brings tons of people to our town. I mean, there's very few places in the world as beautiful as High Street in Southampton at the foot of the flag. It's just an unbelievable place on a sunny Thursday evening, in the summertime. Are you kidding me? It's, there's hardly a better place to be, right? And you guys have an event down there and you do a great job. It's, and as always, it's important to be respectful of all the neighbors down there. And I know you work hard at that and our staff has worked hard at it. And there's always been a lot of interplay and we got to keep doing that. Make sure that we're working with those folks and respecting the fact that they live there. And as long as we keep doing that, I think you can continue to have an awesome event down there, hopefully for 30 or maybe 60 or 90 more years. You'll be there for most of those, I should think. So,
Jeez,
so
won't have any hair.
anyway, thanks very much for coming in tonight. Tell us about it. And as I say, our staff will get back to you with the usual set of approvals.
Appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Okay, so now we're on to item number 8, reports of municipal officers and committees. And we're starting with staff reports. 8.2, which is the Safe to School, 8.21, sorry, which is the Safe to School implementation report. And I will turn that over to Matt Prentice, our Director of Operations.
Thank you and good evening, and to you, your worship. So at the November 13th Committee of the Whole meeting, my first day on the job, Saugeen Shores Safe to School presented a very well-prepared delegation related to pedestrian and traffic safety at Port Elgin schools. All the recommendations have been reviewed by staff and many can be implemented. Others can be implemented with modifications or alternative proposals. Of the 57 recommendations brought forward by Safe to School, 42 are within the scope of responsibility of the town, and of these, 30 are being recommended for implementation at this time. The financial impacts will be managed through the approved 2024 Saugeen Shores business plan. So at the Saugeen Shores delegation focused on stated objectives of improving traffic safety, educating students and families, and encouraging walking and biking to school. Staff reviewed these on site and in the office with respect to regulatory requirements and best practices. That includes myself and Pete from Public Works, as well as help from engineering staff, which was appreciated. The proposed implementation plan was reviewed with STS volunteers, Dana and Julia, who are here this evening, and the feedback received was positive. The recommendations in this report include improvements that the town can implement. Table 1 summarizes the recommendations made by Safe to School, and they're categorized as either agreement with the recommendation as they wrote it, agreement with some changes. Some of the recommendations were beyond the authority of the town, so it was not our place to recommend them. And there are other recommendations that are not recommended, but alternative options are sometimes presented. We have also attached several maps to the staff report to assist in interpreting, and it should be read in conjunction with Table 1 because the information on the drawings is the highlights. The table includes more details. The comments in green, generally speaking, on the tables or on the figure rather, indicate action that's categorized for action, while comments in red denote requested items which are beyond the authority of the town or not recommended or an alternative is recommended. So the 12 recommendations that are not recommended for advancing are explained in Table 1 and mostly represent requests that do not comply with existing standards and normal practice, such as non-standard signage or pavement markings or mid-block crossings, which we would not recommend. Where traffic control changes are proposed and parking restrictions are going to be altered or recommended to be altered, revisions to traffic and or parking bylaws will be required. These proposed amendments will come forward at future council meetings. And while the work itself was not included in the 2024 business plan, it's anticipated the work can be completed by September, ready for the next school year. Discussions about various specific items. We provided some of that in the report. The always stop request by Safe to School at the intersection of Stafford and Johnson. This proposal is being evaluated in accordance with the transportation master plan that Saugeen Shores does have, which is consistent with the Highway Traffic Manual Book 5 and the town's always stop control request policy dated February 2021. The policy states that always stops must follow the warrant process referred to in Book 5. As such, we're currently gathering traffic and pedestrian count data at that intersection to determine if all-way stop is warranted. In the event that one is not warranted by the calculations, we would propose traffic calming measures on Johnston Avenue as an alternative. We also considered an all-way stop at Catherine Street and Stafford Street, but that is not something we can actually implement because Book 5 does not recommend always stops at offset intersections and do create liability if we were to choose to do so. We've also attached figures 2A and 2B to the report in order to give some context because we figured we owed it to council to show the other outstanding stop sign requests that exist so that you know that we are actually contemplating those, gathering data for those with our field equipment with a view towards including those considerations in the transportation master plan. One item which requires a little bit of special consideration, it's a unique issue, is the Mary Street South sidewalk. It has a bit of a history. So some Mary Street South sidewalk near Northport, which brings children from Goddard Street to Waterloo Street to school. The south sidewalk was the first existing sidewalk at the location. The painted crossing at the location where Mary Street bends was a safety concern because it was present in the middle of the road bend, and a pedestrian crossing is inherently unsafe in a location like that. So to improve safety in recent years, a sidewalk was constructed on the north side of Mary Street, which alleviates the risk due to the mid-bend crossing. Use of the north sidewalk is encouraged, the use of the south sidewalk is discouraged, and the south sidewalk is actually not maintained in the winter. The south sidewalk remains, the associated concrete crossing landings remain to the school, that is, and the remnants of the white crosswalk lines also remain. So the STS request was to include and return that south sidewalk to the winter operations list, but following staff review, including legal advice, we are actually recommending to partially remove a portion of the south sidewalk, removing all sidewalk west of House 546 and all crossing paint, remove the sidewalk portion across Waterloo Street, and including a portion on the school board property across the road. This option increases safety, aligns pedestrian traffic on the north side of the roadway where the crossing guard is positioned, that is on Goddard Street, and facilitates safe crossings at the protected intersection. The figure that actually shows that in detail is attached as well. It's related to the Mary Street South Sidewalk considerations. Crossing guards, Safe to School requested 3 additional crossing guards for locations at Joseph and Waterloo Street, Stafford and Gustavus, Stafford and Johnston. We are proposing alternative improvements in this report, and we can evaluate those after the implementation. Should further measures be necessary, additional crossing guards can be considered in a future business plan. The annual cost for an additional crossing guard is approximately $6,000. Currently, the town has 9 crossing guards and has to outsource this function due to staff retention and recruitment challenges. The financial impacts, the costs associated with the program, while creating pressure on the 2024 budget, are constrained within the existing budget. Are there any questions?
Okay, thank you very much. So there is a recommendation. I'll read it, then we can take any questions or comments from members. It's recommended the council direct staff to implement changes outlined in the Safe to School implementation report, and the council direct staff to bring forward supporting amendments to the traffic and parking bylaws as required. Questions or comments from members? Councillor Halpin, and then Grace.
First of all, thanks for the report, and thank you, Julia and Dana, for all your hard work on this. I'm really pleased with the work that's been done towards this, and I think it's going to make a safer community for our children. I think it's going to make it easier for children to walk to school. It's going to make it easier for people to bike to school. And there's many upsides to making these improvements. It fits in well with our active transportation policy, our bike-friendly policy, and all of those things. So I think this is great. I appreciate the hard work that you've put into it, and I appreciate the hard work of our concerned citizens that brought this up. I just want to mention again that if anyone wonders if all this is needed, just drop a kid off at Port Elgin Saugeen Central. Just drive by Northport School. You'll see this. I'm glad this needed to be done, and I'm glad that we're getting it done. So thank you. Thank you for your wonderful report.
Thank you, Councillor Grace. And then the Vice Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Matt, and all of your staff for the comprehensive report. And thanks to the Safe to School group for bringing all of your concerns forward in such a detailed, thoughtful way. And I really want to thank our staff for returning that seriously. The seriousness with which you took their requests is very impressive. and the detail and how you explained every recommendation and every response to every recommendation was excellent. So thank you very much.
Thank you. The Vice Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, just a comment and question, Mr. Mayor, and Matt, just an excellent report. And I think this is a good example of how, you know, a group can come to council at Safe to School Committee. Thank you, by the way, to all of those who are involved with writing the report and getting this in front of council. And the expediency, like how quickly this was responded to by Matt and your staff, Julia, Dana. I just really want to say thank you for all your great work, because it is a really well documented, well detailed, very comprehensive, as Councillor Grace mentioned, report. So thank you. And I agree with most what's in there. There's some really good changes and about to be made fairly quickly. And it's nice to see that our business plan, I keep hearing it's not in our business plan, it's not in our business plan, it's not in our business plan. And it's nice to see there is some flexibility. When these types of things come along, I think there needs to be some flexibility in our business plan. So thank you for that as well. Matt, the question I had was actually on the last page, the very last item. You know, the address vehicular traffic turning left from Mill Creek onto Gustavus, and you know that can be a pretty treacherous left-hand turn onto that 4-lane road. Just can you give me the rationale behind not supporting that recommendation? No left-hand turns at this, restricting left-hand turns at this intersection, not agreeing to that?
A couple of reasons. It's not normal to restrict an intersection in that manner, and especially a major one that's entering onto a county road in that manner. We'd have to liaise with the county to even consider it. That's the primary reason.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Further, the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. And I could echo a lot of what's been said about the completeness of the report. I have a couple of comments and questions. I know that some of this will come up in a review of the traffic and parking bylaw to have that come into play. It was noted in at least one place that we don't have to change anything. We just have to put the signs up. So I just would like to encourage, if there's any other places in town that there are no parking situations, if the signs aren't up yet, maybe we can catch that when we do an update. And there was mention of crosswalk paint. Do we Saugeen Shores do that ourselves, or is that an outsourced service?
Goddard Street is outsourced, the rest is in-house.
Okay, because normally that sort of thing, you see a lot of activity in the spring. So certainly with the schools, it would be advantageous to kind of work towards something that more matches the timeline for the kids at the school. So I'm sure we can handle that if we're doing it ourselves. I know today you also sent something letting us know that the school board has picked up on a couple of items that had more to do with them than us, because it's private property in their regard. I hope that has some of what they're hoping to do becomes a little more obvious, that'll be shared with us, because it is a joint kind of activity to create some safer vehicular traffic and safer pedestrian and bicycle routes. I did note also that I know you included Southampton stoplights, a little map there. GC Houston isn't really included in this, but I'm assuming that at different points we reach out to GC Houston just to make sure that I see some nods back there, just to make sure that we're catching any potential opportunities or challenges with GC Houston. And the 3 stop signs that are mentioned, I know if people have looked at the map, there will be interest. And I know the one downtown might come up in the downtown study that's about to happen this summer. There's one mention in your table that talks about utilizing the gravel area on the corner of Mill Creek Drive to have additional space for drop off and pickup. And you make mention in here, this land is also subject to surplus land review. Is that on our side or on the school board side?
Turn that to the
I,
director.
I'm trespassing on a territory which I am not as familiar with, but it's between the school board and the town.
CAO.
Sorry, can you please repeat the question? Just, I'm happy to answer it.
It's the last page of the table, and the comment was parents could utilize the gravel area on the corner of Mill Creek Drive to have additional space for drop off and pickup. And the response in the column with suggestions or opportunities was school responsibility to provide adequate parking. This land is also subject to surplus land review. Whose surplus land review, ours or theirs?
Thank you. Apologies to have that question repeated. It is our review. So this is part of the Cameron's ball diamond parcels that we'll be looking at and reporting to council on this year. And our answer to the school board was that they do need to provide adequate parking for their schools on their property. And that this portion will be part of that review that comes forward for council.
Okay, are there further questions, Councillor Davinsky?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, everything's been said. Thank you to those that brought this to our attention. And thank you to Matt for the incredible report and the detail. And as an aside, I just want to say, as a member of the Southampton BIA, I'm happy to see that there's going to be some consideration of a four-way stop at High Street and Grosvenor. And that was brought up some time ago, and I'm glad it's just on the table more than anything else, because I know it's not something that's going to happen until 2025. But thank you for that. It's there and it's on the record. Thanks.
Thank you. The Deputy Mayor?
Sorry, just one further question. And the Vice Deputy Mayor was mentioning about how the business plan has some flexibility built into it. There is a reference in the report also to installing a sidewalk on the west side of Cake Street between Catherine and Gustavus, and it's about being included in the 2025 capital program. Was that in the 10-year plan, or is that another one of the ways we've been able to immediately sort of bounce to include something that's very important? I apologize. I should have probably asked.
Looks like we have the manager of engineering coming up to answer that one.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, we considered this one under our annual sidewalk program. So just we use that flexibility to get this in our business plan.
Okay, further questions or comments? I think, so maybe a couple comments from me and then one question. I mean, and it has been said how much or how well our staff has responded to these requests. We certainly thank the group for looking at this so seriously, giving us so many recommendations, and then certainly thank our staff for responding so fully, as has been said already. 30 out of 52 is not too bad, and only 40 some odd of those were within our jurisdiction. And to be able to do all those sort of in time for next school year, I think is pretty good. We did actually budget for this, so it wasn't entirely out of the business plan. We budgeted to be able to do this work, which is why we can do it in this speed, because council put that money in the 2024 budget. So anyway, a very positive outcome. I think I'll certainly support the recommendations. I did want to make the comment though, and I think it was alluded to here about how it's sort of a joint thing between us and the school board. And I think it's really important to remember that the board does need to resolve this issue, because in the end, and I, as somebody who does drop kids off at Saugeen Central, I try not to do it very often because it's not a place I really like to be with my car or with my kids, honestly. I'd like to send them on the bus instead whenever I can, but it's a mess there, and we'll make every change we possibly can to improve the safety, but I don't think, to be perfectly honest, I don't think we're going to resolve this issue just with these measures. Those people are all still going to drive there. They're going to park on the streets where they can park. And those streets will be hectic, and there will be kids on them, and it will be a problem. In the end, the board, just like any property owner, needs to resolve this by providing adequate parking for the people who visit their establishment on their own property. Now, I understand that that's difficult because there have these schools that are constrained, but what's positive is they're about to build new schools. And we're very happy that they're going to do that. We've been pushing for it for a long time. Thank God they're going to do that. But now is the time to resolve these issues because they're going to get that capital from the province to build new schools. And when they build those new schools, I think they could not only make sure, certainly to make, when they build a new school, to make sure it has adequate parking for all their busing and all their visitors on site. That's an absolute must. But I think we could go a step further and maybe resolve some of these existing issues by reconsidering all of their schools inside Port Elgin's, particularly in Port Elgin, and sort out this problem more holistically. I would just really strongly encourage the board to take a holistic view at Saugeen Central, Northport Elementary, and think about, as they're going to build a brand new school, how maybe they could resolve some of their broader issues as part of this new capital project. And I also know, and I don't want to leave them out of it, the Catholic Board is also looking at a new elementary school in the town of Port Elgin, and they should also be doing the same thing. They are the most constrained school, particularly in terms of yard space, certainly in terms of parking, and they need to address it as well, and with capital dollars that I expect are going to flow to them as well. So this is really an important thing for the board to think about and resolve, because I really believe the only way to make sure this is absolutely safe in the future is for the board to accommodate all of the parking on their own properties. So I guess that's my call out to them. Hopefully they'll hear the call. And my question is about the Mary Street South Sidewalk. Your preferred approach is only to remove that small portion of it. I wonder why, and I'm not a big fan of removing sidewalks, but I also wonder why would we want to preserve a sidewalk to nowhere? I mean, you look at that, it essentially goes nowhere. And if somebody ventures down it, if they want to get to Northport, they're going to have to still cross the road mid-block, right? So what's the logic for preserving it at all? Why not take that fourth option and remove it altogether?
We examined, and I mean this in terms of internally, including legal advice, all the options ahead in front of us. And the denial of that sidewalk service to that last home, when they've historically enjoyed it, would have been an issue we would have had to figure out. The other thing to point out, and this is, I'm answering your question in a general way, not a very legalistic way, but if you look at that particular road configuration, Mary Street, and say to yourself, I want to build it from scratch with sidewalks on both sides, but I'm not going to continue the sidewalk on the east side of Waterloo Street. You would build it exactly the way that we're proposing to turn it into. You would stop that sidewalk at your last residence, and you would have the north side sidewalk doing the job of getting the kids to school. So we're sort of reverting to what would have been a common sense design in the first place.
Okay, fair enough. So with that, you've heard the recommendation, and if there's nothing further, I'll ask all in favor. That's carried. Thank you. Okay, so our next item is response to year-round ice delegation, and we have our manager of recreation, Lisa Billing, here to give us that report.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Mayor and Council, at the January 8th Committee of a Whole meeting earlier this year, Council heard from a group of dedicated community members who delivered a delegation with a proposal for year-round ice in Saugeen Shores. The delegation included two specific asks. One, to extend the 2024 ice season, either keeping the ice in later into May or installing the ice earlier in August. And two, a recommitment to the 3-year year-round ice pilot project that was previously approved in the 2020 budget. Tonight's report addresses the request with two recommendations. The background information related to both requests is included in the staff report, along with the next steps and an anticipated report structure should the second recommendation be approved tonight. Content included on pages 5 and 6 of the staff report reflect how staff anticipate a report would be structured if directed to return to council with a report in Q2 of this year, including items such as considerations and impact of the Aquatic and Wellness Center construction, costs and revenue estimates, benefits and considerations of the pilot program, among other highlights. I welcome any comments or questions, and thank you for your time.
Okay, so it's recommended that council support the 2024 schedule as outlined due to the existing commitments and construction schedule in place at the Plex and Coliseum, and the council directs staff to return with a report in Q2 of 2024 with a recommendation regarding the 3-year, 12-month ICE pilot program beginning in 2025. Questions or comments from members? Councillor Halpin.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. When this report comes back to us, will it have an estimate of the costing of the program and our projected deficit or total costing? Yes?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, they will include not only like operating cost estimates, but also staff estimates for staff time, and if there is an estimated cost for existing assets. So running longer runtime, increased maintenance, what are those costs, or is there a shortened life cycle related to those items?
Okay, thank you.
All right, so I'll come to the deputy mayor and then Councillor Mayette.
Thank you, and through you. Your report mentions a couple of times something referred to as a flash vote. I have another question too, but could you just describe what a flash vote is and who would be participating in that?
Sure, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, the Flash Vote is the organization's new community engagement voting platform. And it would be, we've identified it as tentative if we would, something we would consider in terms of seeking broader input from the community if this is something that the community is interested in proceeding in.
That sounds very promising. So hopefully it can be utilized and show just the potential of it. I had a question about, also in the report, it mentions about moving up the hiring of a program coordinator. I believe that program coordinator was perhaps associated with the Aquatics and Wellness Center. So I just was curious why something to do with ICE potentially at the Coliseum, potentially at the Coliseum for perhaps a bit of the time and maybe over here. Why would you have to bump up the hiring of somebody who's associated with the Aquatics and Wellness Center?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the position is associated with the Aquatics and Wellness Center. However, they would support the Recreation Division in general. Their focus, of course, is the Aquatic and Wellness Center. However, we have programming that happens throughout the community as well. The current facility programs and facility booking coordinator has a workload that is suited for our current operations, increasing additional ice rentals and marketing for the 12-month or year-round ice pilot program would come with some additional support required.
Okay, Councillor Mayette.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I see, Lisa, at the end of your report on the last page, you talk about ice covering. So we had Katie Rice here today talking about their Hello Summer concert, and it seems to me sort of inconceivable that we would block out all summer activities because of ice. So it's only the next logical solution to that would be to put down ice covers. Wouldn't that be cool? Unintended. So what is the approximate cost of these boards to go down? I guess they're insulated boards to go down on top of the ice. And then do we have the capacity to store things like that? And I mean, it seems sort of, if we're going to go down this trail, it seems almost inevitable that we're going to get into that. So if you got an idea in your head what the capital impact of that might be?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't have an estimate for what that cost would be, but that is something that would be included in the report that would come back to council for consideration. And you hit everything on the head with it in terms of the cost of the equipment itself, but also storage of that equipment year round, installation time, all of those pieces would also be considered as part of that service offering.
Okay, I have Councillor Stack.
Yeah, thank you. Were these costs and issues not considered back in 2020 when the original trial was proposed?
Manager?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we'd have to dig specifically into the plan in that was part of the business plan in 2020 to identify specifically what was specifically what was captured as part of those costs at that time.
Thank you. If I can just continue. So I think my comment is really, we've raised all these issues, which I think are valid issues. I'm just more reminding that it would merit some review of why the council at the time approved it originally. Because I think when we reflect on what's being requested from the community, it's to reanimate something that was previously approved and stopped, if I recall correctly, as a result of COVID. So I just think it's merit to sort of reflecting that this was originally proposed, and that it would probably be useful to review what considerations were brought forward when the original plan was approved. And obviously, if we've missed something at that time, it's a great opportunity to add to it in this report. But I would certainly be hesitant to disregard the basis upon which we approved this process back in 2020, and why it wouldn't be appropriate for 2025. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Further comments from members? Councillor DeHame.
Yeah, thank you. And through you, Mayor, just a question, Lisa. Maybe we need the project manager to answer for the aquatic center. But if we weren't removing and then having to install the ice, aside from the Summerfest concerts, would we be able to get some efficiencies on the construction schedule if they weren't having to work around those dates? That's all.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's something we'd have to come back with and include in a report. Not something that I can speak to specifically at this time.
Okay, further questions or comments? The Vice Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Lisa, one of the requests from Janet Dawson's group, and they did a wonderful job. And in your report, you said they did an incredible amount of work, and they have, and got to the point, I think, where for those 3 months, I think they really do believe that they made enough contacts that could fill all of that ice time in 2025, which is great news. So they've done a lot of legwork with finding those groups to fill those ice slots. This 3-month position really concerns me. I, of course, oppose the implementation phase of those employees that we're bringing in 1 year in advance, 6 months in advance, et cetera. This one's being increased now by 3 more months. We have a facilities booking coordinator. We just hired a facilities manager. Janet Dawson and her group have done an incredible amount of work to prepare the listing for the bookings. Can we not dig deep here among staff and start to curb our spending a little bit and reel this thing in here a little bit with spending? I'm getting concerned that it's another 3 months. It's only $20,000, right? But we keep adding and adding and adding. And can we not dig deep with our facility bookings coordinator and our facilities manager and the existing staff that we have with marketing and get this done without having to add another 3 months to the program coordinator? Can you explain why we really need that position to be increased by 3 months?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the details related to staffing would be flushed out in detail in a report coming back in Q2 of this year. We would look at where the workload and what was required to launch this program and bring it forward if that is a desire of council.
Well, I look forward to that report. And by the way, I think this report was really well done. A lot of detail in here and easy to follow. And I do commend staff for the way in which it was written. Is a lot of good detail, but I just can't support that 3 month. I hope it's not going to show up in the report in the spring, that 3 month extension. One of the questions I did have, Lisa, was about one of the other requests that Janet Dawson and her group had was for spring ice. And you heard the group made it very clear with the Ontario Minor Hockey Association, Hockey Canada, that their ice schedule has changed and their season is starting earlier now and not later. And there was a call for spring ice so they can get their tryouts in April and part of May. And spoke to Janet Dawson today about this. And they're saying, can the ice be left in the spring for 3 weeks extra, if not 2 weeks, if not at least 1 week this spring, 2024? In your report, you talk about, I'll just pull it up. The deviation of adjustment to the Plex schedule for spring ice is not recommended. This will impact the Aquatic Wellness Center construction schedule. Why does it impact this spring's schedule for spring ice? If the ice was left in for 1 week longer, how does that impact the construction of the Wellness Center?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the renovation work that is going to happen on Municipal Hall as part of the Aquatic and Wellness construction project, as well as some construction work that will be taking place around the front lobby and entry into the arena itself, will be happening. And it is set to commence that work almost immediately, even while the ice is still in, until April 21st, and then it will be going kind of full tilt after that time. There will be still access to the facility for the public to access Municipal Hall, but that's why the dates have been communicated with the construction manager in terms of what how operationally we're set up this year.
Okay. There is an entrance on the west side of the building that ice users could be directing in and out of the west side doors. I just think there could be a way if staff take another look at it, but even 1 week would help our minor hockey officials with their spring tryouts, because they're in a time crunch here to get their tryouts in. And anyways, I just hope that maybe take one more look at it. It would be my desire. The other thing I wanted to add is if the decision is forthcoming that there will be summer ice, and I hope there will be. I think it'd create a tremendous boom for our community with all the people coming in from out of town to use the ice for those extra 12 weeks. Lisa, what's the earliest that the organizers could hear back from staff and council in terms of letting those groups know and that there will be summer ice in 2025? I think it's in your report somewhere there when you be back to us, but what's the earliest we could get back to Janet Dawson and the group to let her know that there will be summer ice in 2025?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the anticipated date that we have included in this report is that a report with a recommendation would come forward for the last council or committee of the whole meeting in June. And then if the recommendation is advanced by council to go forward with the year-round ice in 2025, then it would be approved at the council meeting following that committee of the whole meeting. So I think it's July 8th is what is indicated in the report here.
Okay, I guess my point is it's it's the end of February. There's no way that report can get back to us in April, even May. Just to allow the organizers time to get set up for 2025.
CAO will speak to it.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm mindful, Vice Deputy Mayor, that there's a lot of research that needs to go into this, and respectfully, staff have outlined a really confident timeline for you here that has a report back in front of you in a couple months' time. I feel like that is a very aggressive timeline, and appreciate staff's attention to all the detail in this report that lays out how it will come forward.
Okay. Councillor Davinsky then? Oh, sorry, you finished, Mike? Yeah, you are, okay. Councillor, did you have a comment on Councillor Davinsky?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I agree with what the Vice Deputy Mayor is saying about hiring someone for 3 months to do this work. It would be great, and I know this all depends on the Q2 report, but it would be great if we could do it in-house, because near the end of the staff report, it says impact on the 2024 business plan. If you do that, you're going to lose this. And I would rather lose the 3-month person and try to get the Plex Arena seating handrail installation project underway, as it says on the report. This is in addition to the ice all year and so on, because that could come back to haunt us if we don't. I did the game on Friday night, and I watched people using that middle stairway, if you will, in the Plex. And I felt for them because they didn't have this handrail that the other one did. So I would like to see us do everything in-house and then hire this person that we're going to hire early anyway, but not so early as to do the ICE program. I think we can do that on our own, and maybe we save enough money to do this handrail. I don't know. I'd like to see that come back in the Q2 report. And I see our CAO is chomping at the bit. So through you, I would ask her for a comment.
CAO.
Yeah, thank you for the question. And I just wanted to clarify, sorry if I look like I was chomping at the bit. I just wanted to clarify, it's not about the money, it's about the staff resources that it takes to organize it. And so I'm mindful this year that our staff, Lisa and Kristen, are working full tilt on getting an aquatic and wellness center built. They're working on the $50 million project build that's right beside us, which consumes a lot of time and staff energy. And so when we built the 2024 business plan, we were very mindful that that was going to be the major initiative that the recreation division was working on. We had a few other pieces like have been identified here, the handrail and the cycling pieces, but ultimately most of their time was going to be spent on the construction of the aquatic and wellness center. This, the year-round ice piece is an additional piece that the community's brought forward. There's a lot of support around the table for it, but we're mindful that staff can't do all of it. And so that's why that piece is in there. It really is about the staff time that's needed in order to advance these. And so similarly, I saw the vice deputy's mayor face not too happy with my answer, but like, I think that this report demonstrates the level of detail that needs to go into the thinking behind this. And the next report's going to have even more detail for you, because you are going to need to consider a pre-budget approval in order to make this happen. And so that's a significant amount of resources in order to put a very fulsome review together for you in a couple of months' time, on top of building an aquatic and wellness center. So I'm just raising that to be mindful of how much capacity we have in our staff to advance these major initiatives this year.
I agree with the fact that it has to come back, and that's the answer. The Q2 report, we have to see what it says, and I know it'll have a lot of detail, and I look forward to it. Otherwise, I would like to say thank you for this plan coming together. A lot of work has been put into it by the delegations and by town staff. Lisa, thank you very much for that, and Kristen, and I look forward to the Q2 report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. There's nothing further. I just want to echo what Councilor Davinsky said. Thanks so much for your work on this report. It's a pretty timely response to the request, which came only, a little over a month ago. And I think it gives us a good, reasonable path forward, considering all that's going on. It's unfortunate. It's a bit of a unique year around here because of the work that's going on at the Aquatics and Wellness Center. That timing just makes this very complicated, just in this one year. So I think staff has given us a good, their very best path forward to move forward with summer ice and to give us some good recommendations coming back. I will just note that I think, when we talk about additional staff or additional resources, it's just important to remember that this is an pretty significant increase in service level, right? So it's going to cost money, and it's probably not going to be a small amount of money. It wasn't a small amount of money 4 years ago. It's going to be even more money now. It's going to cost, the staff isn't cheap. Everything is much more expensive now than it was 4 years ago. So it's going to be a lot of money. And I think, so I'm going to sort of reserve my judgment on what my view on it will be until we hear this report in Q2, because what will be requested of us is a pre-budget approval. And it's no surprise to any of you folks what the budget looked like back in 2024 and how we struggled to get it into, to 4.9%, which was a tough pill for a lot of folks to swallow. And I think, and rightfully so, it's a lot of money that we're asking the taxpayer to pay. So we have to be cautious about these things. Let's see what it comes back cost-wise. We know that there's a lot of support and interest in the community for it. I think a lot of folks around this table would like to see it advance, but we have to operate within reason and within within a good business plan and something we can take to the public and to the taxpayer and say that we're being reasonable and responsible. So let's get that report back in May or May in Q2. I guess I said May. I don't know why I said May. End of June, sorry, in Q2. And we'll proceed at that time and see what the best route forward is. So you've heard the recommendation, and I'll ask all in favor. That's carried. Thank you. Okay, so we're moving on to item 3 now, which is council telephone extension recommendation, and we have the manager of information technology with that one.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. It was identified during budget deliberations and feedback in Q4 of 2023 that and talking with communications that we could streamline the ability for staff and the public to contact council. So the recommendation is that we assign telephone phone numbers or extensions to all council members. Currently, the mayor does. However, the rest, if you check the contact information section on the website, it simply redirects to the main phone number. So what this does is it does lead the public to have to kind of wade through the phone system and go through the administrative staff to get to someone from council. So this would be in conjunction with the communications group to update and putting specific phone numbers for each council member. And there is the flexibility of these phone extensions obviously can be forwarded to cell phone, home phone, or to voicemail, depending on their wish. Obviously doing so would provide direct contact, provide the public with direct lines of communication, foster a sense of accessibility and transparency while maintaining privacy. Direct calling will lead to quicker response time by removing some of those steps in reaching members of council, and easier access to council members may also encourage more public participation and engagement on key issues. And obviously that aligns with our strategic goal of building valued relationships with public and other stakeholders. And the cost of $1,114 associated with this change would be contained within the existing 2024 operating budget.
Okay, thank you. So there is a recommendation that council approve assigning Town of Saugeen Shores telephone extensions to members. Questions or comments? The Deputy Mayor and then Councillor Halpin.
Thank you, and through you. During this term of council, I've never been contacted by a staff member to let me know that someone's tried to reach me by phone. I've had 3 voicemail kinds of translations come to me via email. So it was my understanding when the first one happened that there was a way that someone, when they phoned in, could actually leave a message for me. I'm all for public participation and all of that. I think the phone system needs a lot more work than just adding our extensions to it. I phone in regularly and often encounter a lot of static on the line and complications in terms of getting to where I need to get to. And then I hear the same message a couple of times before I get to a point where I can leave a message for somebody. And probably the most common comment or question I get is, why is it so hard to get through on the phone to a staff person? So I'm not opposed to this. However, I don't really understand why it's needed because I thought there was some way that it was already happening. And I just would hope that at some point there's a review, and maybe it'll show up in the business plan sometime, a review of the whole phone system here, because there are a lot of issues with the way that it works, doesn't work. And quite frankly, there is static on the line a lot. And it causes me and other people to hang up and try again. And sometimes you get the static 2 or 3 times before you actually get a clean line through. But I'm not opposed to this, but I just don't understand why it's needed. Thank you.
Any comment to that, the manager?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So this was brought forward partly comments that it was hard to get a hold of council themselves. And obviously also because it wasn't uniform across the board. So as for the reachability of staff, we could definitely take that offline. I have not had any reports otherwise from any other members of council or staff of complaints or issues of reaching staff. However, we are constantly reviewing the phone tree and trying to streamline it. Each department or division provides what they feel would be the ideal choices of each phone tree, but I agree it could definitely be streamlined further. As for static, it's a digital phone system, so I'm kind of surprised you're hearing static, but we can definitely review that or do some test calls from different phone providers. See if we can recreate that or follow up with the vendor as well, because there shouldn't definitely be any static on the phone system.
Okay, Councillor Halpin.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. We have business cards and I have my cell phone number on my business card, and I have a Facebook and website page with that number on. And why couldn't, where it says that has council, I looked at that page today. Why couldn't we just have our cell phone numbers there, our phone numbers, and then people can just call us directly? And it could probably save time leaving the staff out of it and the shortest route of communication. My thoughts?
The manager?
Yep. So I would kind of reserve that for clerks and communications. The phone system itself, there is that flexibility. So one of the questions from the deputy mayor was, so yes, if you call into the main number and wade through, the last option is to dial by name. Most people choose not to listen to those options, or they would much prefer have either the direct phone number or the extension. The statistics show monthly we take around 2,900 calls. More than half of those are direct extension calls where they do not even want to listen to the tree. They already know who they talk to. If you're calling building, it's a contractor that they've called many times, and it allows them to bypass the whole phone tree. So part of that is that reason. So I am aware, I spoke to the clerks of what phone numbers were being provided, and on the business cards, some have provided cell phone, some have provided home phone. So that definitely is an option if all of council's open to that, of just publishing those numbers. Using the town phone number, it can be forwarded to the cell phone or home phone. It just protects the privacy, because it's one thing to provide your business card to a few people. Some may not feel comfortable publishing their cell phone number for the entire world to see on the website. So it's really just a filtering mechanism. Even if those calls are forwarded to your home or cell phone, you don't have to give those out to everybody on the internet.
Councillor Halpin?
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. I guess I'm from that generation where everyone had their name and phone number in a book for everyone to see. So that doesn't really, scare me. And I would just, my 2 cents on this is I would rather just have my phone number where it has my name. And why go through staff? Why go through the system if someone could just call directly to you?
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think just maybe I can just provide a little clarity, because I used this already. So if you go online right now, you'll see my name, and there's a phone number 832-2008 extension 142, and that rings to this phone. It doesn't connect to anybody. Nobody filters that call. Somebody knows my extension, they call it, it goes right to here. And it's really great. And you don't need to know this cell phone number, and nobody needs to remember just have to remember my 3-number extension, call the town line and punch it in, and they can get right a hold of me. So I think it's a good compromise, because I suspect not everyone is as open. Some people are more worried about having their personal cell phone number out there. So I think it's a great way to get direct contact. It's certainly, I can just say from my own experiences, I throw it in, that it works really well for me, and it's very seamless. So sorry about that. Councillor Davinsky, and then I have my.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I agree with Councillor Halpin. My business card also has my cell phone number on it, and I talked to IT this last week, and I asked them to change my number on the website and put in my cell number rather than the general number that was there. To me, it's been like that all my life. It's investment in self. When I was in radio, you had to have contact with the public. And the same holds true here. If a public person calls, now maybe that's the route to go, the compromise. But if a person calls and wants to talk to me, I don't want it going to any nondescript mailbox, if you will. I want it coming to me. Most times I can answer my phone. So I think we need to do that with the public that we have. We always talk about transparency. Well, this is part of that. And they have to have accessibility to us. So I don't know if it got changed on the website. I didn't check. I'm sorry. But it was going to be changed. So I'll go either way, but I want to make sure that they have contact.
Maybe I could just turn back to the manager. Can you offer some comments to that, some reassurance to council on those questions?
Sure, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, as for the phone number update on the website, IT would have provided that to communications. I can follow up on that tomorrow. They do all the contact information and updates on the website. And as the mayor was alluding to, yes, you do not, the idea of the extensions is that you do not have to interact with any staff. So the idea is you call the main number, which most people get used to calling already. But the difference is you have a 3-digit extension that would go right to that person. It can be forwarded right to somebody's cell phone, home phone. And they actually have the ability to change that if they feel comfortable. So at any time, if somebody they don't want it on the home phone, now they want it on the cell phone or vice versa, they can change it, or, town staff can also change that at any time.
Okay.
To elaborate, that is direct. I think we're maybe not getting that message through is when someone's dialing in and they dial your 3-digit extension, it goes direct to you. They have no idea if it's going to your cell phone or your home phone. It doesn't really matter. All they know is that call went directly to you. Your phone rings, whichever phone that happens that you happen to choose, and you pick it up. To them, it was a direct line to you. So I think it is achieving what you're looking for.
Okay, Councillor Mayette and then Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, as far as receiving messages, be they text messages, voice messages, emails, direct messages, voice messages are my least favorite because you have to put in your passcode and press 1 and then press, and it's more cumbersome. But I do know my new OIS system on my Apple phone has a 1 button. It comes up, oh, you've got 4 voice messages. It's a 1 button and it plays it for you. And I think what I heard you say is, as the user of this new system, I could have the choice whether when the person hits my 3-digit extension, it rings or it goes directly to a voice message. Because personally, I don't want my cell phone out there and on the website. It's on my business card and I do distribute that around a little bit, but I don't want it sort of in the public realm. It's my personal phone and my business phone. And I get enough calls on that, and I get enough calls that I always screen. There's not a day goes by when I'm not getting some call soliciting my non-existent bank account with the CIBC or whatever it is that I'm, being investigated on something. It's rampant these days, the scams that are going on. So I screen a lot of calls. If I don't recognize the number, I'm probably not going to answer it. So I would like to have the option where it goes directly to voicemail, and then I can go, oh, I can go to them. I think, oh, I've got 4 voice messages and I can just play them with 1 button. Is that an option?
Correct. And through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes. So what my proposal was is if council proceed with a recommendation to get phone extensions, we would forward them to whatever phone numbers on your business cards as the default. If there's any input or request to change it, that's what would initially be set up. So the calls would still come in on your cell phone. And if they left a voicemail, it would be going on your cell voicemail. So there's not a second voicemail to check. It's in your pocket, and
Okay.
they would be there. The difference is that you aren't necessarily giving your cell phone out on the website to everybody.
I see, but anybody could go on the website, hit my extension, and they're gonna,
Yeah,
Hit
it
me.
would dial the main number and either put in the extension if they've got a clickable link, or, if they're just using a touch tone phone, put in the 3 digits and hit pound, and it would
And
go
then
right to your cell phone.
I would have the choice whether or not to answer it or not,
Yeah.
or whether go to
Yeah, it would
voicemail.
ring your cell phone, and if you have your cell phone set to not take calls or you're screening them, it would go to the voicemail.
So I would then have to change my greeting because right now it doesn't say, "Hi, you've reached Counselor Mayette." It says, "Hi, this is Dave."
So we have flexibility in that we can either make it try and ring for a couple rings and then go to a voicemail, the town voicemail. Or, so there's different flexibility, and as seen, everyone has slightly different preferences. So we'd work with each council member. Do you just want it forwarded to home phone, cell phone? There's even an app you can put on your cell phone where it will ring just like your cell phone, but still go to your town voicemail. So there's 3 or 4 different choices.
I like that option right there.
Depending on everybody's preference.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Councilor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Darren. I'm willing to go with this. It has been extremely convenient to have the my town email coming to my cell phone. I've distributed my cell phone number on my business card, and I don't have an issue with that. One of my concerns, but I think you just answered it, was if you're traveling internationally. So, when we travel and we have a North America plan that kicks in if we get a text or a phone call from outside of, from Canada, and we're in the US or we're in Mexico. So it sounds like that app would be an ideal way of avoiding anything like that. And then, you're just using the Wi-Fi to pick up your stuff. So yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, correct. And through you, Mr. Mayor. So there is the application that can go on any Android or iPhone, that will allow you to both receive and make calls. So you don't have to use a data plan or call. You could just use Wi-Fi anywhere, or it would also just pop up showing your new voicemails, so you can check them, listen to them, as well as obviously receiving the voicemail to email, which you receive now.
Okay, anything further? I know it's a change, but I've been doing this for the last 5 years, and I can tell you, you guys will really like it. I think it works really, really well. And so I think it's a smart move to move forward with it. So you've heard the recommendation, and I will ask all in favor. That's carried. Okay. So now we're on to item 4, which is the year-end building activity report, and we have the chief building official and manager of building services here with that report.
Good evening. Thank you. I'm here to present the 2023 building numbers. The numbers are detailed in the report, but I would like to highlight that there are 2 records that we hit this year. So the first record that we hit was an all-time high of construction value, which was 315 million. This more than doubled our last record that we hit in 2021. The second number that we hit all-time high of was that we created 621 residential units. This more than doubled our 5-year average of 333. I'm open to any questions.
Well, thank you. So there is a recommendation that the year-end building activity report 2023 be received for information. And I might just add one more number, which I think is really, to me, the headline number, and I think might even demonstrate how the town of Saugeen Shores is leading. Well, I challenge any other municipality to come up with a number this impressive. The number of permits issued for multifamily residential units jumped by 1,200% from 2022 to 2023. We issued 40 permits for those in 2022 and 481 of them in 2023, which I believe is a direct result of, at least to a great extent, the work of this council and this municipality in encouraging the construction of purpose-built rental and higher density development, with the sole purpose of improving housing affordability in the town of Saugeen Shores. If we, like I say, I don't know if there are other municipalities in Ontario or in Canada that have had a 1,200% increase in their multifamily building permits issued, but I'd like to see it. I doubt there are very many of them. So I think I really think that it's a great news story, both that this town council and the town of Saugeen Shores is celebrating. Our building community obviously has come to the table and taken out those units and constructed many of them, and many more to be constructed this year. But the way that we start to break the back or bend the curve, to use an old COVID term, start building more high density development so that we can get more of that housing stock on the market and hopefully start to impact the cost of housing. And those purpose-built rentals give us something to subsidize. Our rent subsidy is growing. We've implemented it last year, started to grow it this year. But the rent subsidy isn't very useful if there aren't units to subsidize. And so the more units we build, the more opportunity we have to do that as well. And some of these are CMHC funded. And so I think just an awful lot of success there. And if we can continue down that path, I really think we will start to push back the affordability crisis in our own community. And particularly, and I'll just conclude with this, if we can get housing accelerator funding, like we've asked for from the federal government. It's been on the minister's desk for months and months and months now, and he's been making other announcements. It's time he made one in the town of Saugeen Shores so that we can get our community permit planning system off the ground so we can build housing even faster and maybe even do better than this in years to come. But if the minister's looking to fund municipalities that know how to increase the rate of which housing is built, like I say, find me another one that's had a 1,200% increase year over year last year in a pretty tough building year. So hopefully, well, we're going to Ottawa tomorrow. So we'll take that message to him, and hopefully he'll find us the money that we need. Okay, further questions or comments from members? Councillor Davinsky and then the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Speaking to whoever's watching at this particular point in time, if you read nothing else, read this report. Josh is so laid back. Thank you for the report, Josh. He's so darn laid back that I was jumping up and down when I was reading this at home. And I know the media will pick up on it. I think I read last week that Owen Sound is down as far as building stats go. And Toronto just got millions of dollars because they reached their home target. Well, I think we might be getting pretty close ourselves, so we should have a little cash here as well. This is a wonderful report, and really, if you don't like reading reports, just read the report summary. That says it all, but take your time to read this. This is Saugeen Shores going ahead, and it's a terrific job. I have one question for Josh. Josh, how does 2024 look? Now, it's only 2 months old, but how does it look?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think we're going to have another great year. We're having a lot of projects in the development stage through the site plan control. That's going to push that stuff into building this year. So I think we'll have a similar, hopefully as good this year. So, yeah.
Great. That sounds great. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You, the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. And through you, it is a very good news, high value report. The item that I had hoped would be part of the report, which isn't here, is we've got information about the total permit value. There's no information here, though, about the value of development charges that were associated with all of that. It may not fit in with building because it's development, but I think that that's an important piece of the conversation too. And going forward, we certainly have a lot of potential and a lot of building, but we still have some opportunities with infilling or thickening up existing neighborhood where there's already servicing in place. So this expansion out always to new areas and creating new infrastructure. We're getting close to filling up the whole urban settlement area, but I still think that there are opportunities within the existing neighborhoods to make sure that we're doing what we can do to thicken up or create infilling opportunities. So I just wanted to ask a question. When will we receive something which indicates the value of development charges that came in last year? Because we're doing a lot of other things that some of those development charges were expected to contribute to. And I know we've been through various initiatives, waiving fees along the way and adjusting and discounting and that sort of thing. Are we kind of on track in terms of the contributions we were expecting towards recreation facilities and some other kinds of infrastructure? May not be your bailiwick, but I'll just, it can perhaps come later. But I think that that's part of this success too, or perhaps an opportunity to consider going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, development charges, the building department does collect the development charges, but we don't regulate them. So we can take that back to staff and try and bring something forward.
Okay. Oh, sorry, the Vice Deputy Mayor.
No, that's fine. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Josh, to you and all of the building department staff, just thanks and hats off again. And you're extremely busy in that department, as all departments are. I just want to say thank you so much and pass on our thanks to all of your staff for a great job and for a busy year and the last few years and again this year. The institutional there's 2 permits and 44,900,000, and I guess is the majority of that amount, Josh, from the Southampton Care Center? What's the second permit for? There's 2 under institutional permits. It totals 44,900,000. I'm assuming most of it's Southampton Care Center.
Thank you. I would imagine the majority of that is the Southampton Care Center. The other one doesn't come to mind right now. I don't have the
I just wonder what the
details,
second
but-
was, Josh. I'd be just interested to know if you had a chance to send me a quick email. I just was curious. Josh, any word, and I know it's a little bit off topic because we talked about numbers, but when they'll be in the ground, or are they in the ground now, Southampton Care Center?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, they've started the foundations mainly in. They're doing site like underground plumbing right now. And walls are starting to get above the ground. So.
Okay. Thanks again.
Okay, further questions or comments? I think it's just worth noting, and the Vice Deputy Mayor alluded to your staff, but our building department of the town of Saugeen Shores has always been a very lean department. There's not a lot, there's not a huge number of staff there, and the number of permits is up and down, and you guys are able to roll with that. And this is, to do $315 million in permits up from, up significantly from last year. You guys are able to be flexible and roll with that and get all that work done. And now, unlike in sort of maybe previous years, you're approving some pretty complex builds too, right? Southampton Care Center, Vice Deputy Mayor mentioned that one, some bigger apartment buildings, the Aquatic and Wellness Center. These are some pretty major construction projects that take a lot of inspection and a lot of know-how, and you guys do great work. So thank you, and thanks for the report. So as a recommendation, you heard it, I'll ask all in favor. That's carried. Okay, so that is the end of those reports, and now we're on to 8.4, communications and petitions, and there are 7 items there. Anybody wish to discuss any of those 7 items? Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For number 3, I wrote to Chief Melanson and asked him if he would share his opinion about that. So I guess I can ask him, since he's here, if he would share his opinion about the County of Prince Edward fire apparatus resolution.
Fire Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to the councillor. When I reviewed the document, I believe that they're speaking to every municipality submits their fire suppression, water delivery capabilities, training, public education, fire prevention, et cetera, to a arm's length company from the insurance companies that is called Fire Underwriter Survey. And the Fire Underwriter Survey gives points for all of those different things, including apparatus age. So to get the most points for apparatus, you need to be below 20 years for frontline water supplying trucks. So by reading this, it seems to me that Prince Edward County doesn't want to be under 20 years. They would like to stretch that, and they're looking for a private or a different insurance company, whether it's provincial or private, to look at things differently when it comes to apparatus. I don't recommend that we do this. I think that, you know, I understand that fire trucks look really good after 20 years, and generally they're very low in mileage, which is a good thing. Unfortunately, environmentally, they're probably not so good because there's a lot of changes that have been made when it comes to emissions. But more importantly, the health and safety features that go on to a piece of apparatus, 20 years is a lot of change. So I don't recommend we go past 20 years. When I read this is me reading between the lines, but that's where we are.
Okay, thank you. Are there further comments on any of these 7 items? Don't see any, so that brings us to the end of the committee of the whole, and we'll do statements by members and the deputy mayor.
Nothing this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, the vice deputy mayor.
Nothing to report, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Mayette.
Nothing, thank you.
Councillor Duhaime.
Nothing to report tonight. Thanks.
Councillor Davinsky.
I have 27 items here.
Well, seems like you've been left lots of space.
No, I have nothing to report. I'll just recognize Saugeen Shores Winterhawks. Their season came to an end this past weekend, but they provided some terrific entertainment throughout the regular season of the OEHL, and I was proud to be a part of it. Thank you.
Geez, John, do the voice one more time for the season, couldn't you?
You mean here come the Saugeen Shores Winterhawks?
Yeah, there it is. Thank you for that. Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do want to talk about the very successful Coldest Night of the Year event, which took place Saturday and left from Coulter Parquet. And I want to recognize Melinda Mayette and Dave Mayette and their fantastic team that put together an incredible event with, I think, 197 walkers. There were many different organizations representing all ages, and it was really it was just an inspiring event. It was cold, but well organized, raised a lot of money. Our Saugeen Shores Council team with our team leader, Councillor Mayette, we raised what, over $2,200? Is that right? And the community as a whole raised over 44,000. And I think in Canada, because all of these events were taking place throughout the country on the same night, raised over $13 million, all going towards fighting poverty and homelessness in communities across Canada. So couldn't have done it without that base organization of the Mayette family and all of the people who worked for you and the United Way of Bruce Gray, Owen Sound. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Halpin.
Nothing to report tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stack.
Yeah, I should have recognized it last week, and perhaps I did, but my memory is fading me this week. So if I'm duplicating, then just extra credit to the Port Elgin BIA for the successful Family Day event. I honestly can't recall if I mentioned it last week or not, so I'm just doing it in case. I'm happy to see the BIA taking, and if I have, then I'm just reiterating the how happy I am to see sort of events really coming together. And I think now that I'm saying it, I did recognize them, but it was so good, I'm recognizing them again. So thanks.
Well, I wasn't here last week, so it was the first time for me. So thanks for doing that. And just one thing for me, I wanted to note that yesterday I attended a memorial service for former Warden Ron Oswald, former mayor of the town of Erin Eldersley and a longtime municipal politician in that community, also former president of the Canadian Cattlemen's Association. A pretty significant figure, although he was from our neighboring community, had a huge impact on our community in his role as warden and actually throughout his as a leader in the Cattlemen's Association. So I just wanted to note that and pass along the town of Saugeen Shores' sympathy to his family and friends and to his community. And with that, I will look for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Grace, the deputy mayor, all in favor? Committee of the whole stands adjourned and council will convene at 8:40. Okay, I'd like to call to order this regular council meeting for February 26, 2024. Second item on the agenda is disclosure of pecuniary interest. Ask any member if you have one of those you'd like to declare at this time. Seeing none, of course, you can do that anytime if you need to. We have no additions, deletions, or amendments, so we'll move on to adoption of minutes. And we have a recommendation that council adopt the minutes of the regular council meeting of February 12th, 2024, and note and file the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting of February 12th, 2024 as presented. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by the Vice Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Davinsky. Questions or comments to either of those sets of minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Okay, and then we head all the way down to reports, item 8 there, reports of the Committee of the Whole, and there is a resolution. Before I read it, anybody want to consider any of those items on its own? See any requests for that, so I'll read the resolution. It's resolved the council received the Town of Saugeen Shores 2023 annual report for information. 2, the council received the Roma 2024 delegation package briefs for information. 3, the council received the Pioneer Cemetery geotechnical recommendations report for information, and that the multi-year work plan be referred to the 2025 business plan for consideration. 4, the council pass an updated bylaw to regulate burning within the corporation of the Town of Saugeen Shores and rescind bylaw 30/2000. 5, the council received the 2023 annual fire services report for information. 6, the council received the master drainage plan report for information. And 7, the council authorized the chief administrative officer to enter into release agreements with the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority for category 2 non-mandated programs or services for the Port Elgin Erosion Control Project and the Southampton Erosion Control Project. And the council authorized the chief administrative officer to enter into a transfer agreement to transfer easements from the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority to the Saugeen Shores for the Southampton Erosion Control Project. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by the deputy mayor, seconded by Councillor Mayette. Questions or comments? A question from you, Councillor Stack, or was that just a delayed motion? No? Okay. Councillor Davinsky?
Yes, I just want to be reassured on number 3 that the Pioneer Cemetery geotechnical recommendations for information, and there's a multi-year work plan referred to the 2025 business plan. Just want to be sure that we're not going to run into problems with the cemetery with caskets falling out in this year because we've moved it. Well, we haven't moved it. We planned it for 2025. Is that a fair question?
I'm sure it's fair. The CAO.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm trying to be mindful of my words and respectful of the grave sites. We've had an ongoing concern related to Pioneer Cemetery for a number of years. What will be discussed at the 2025 business plan is the financial plan in order to remedy that. I can't say with confidence that we can remediate anything this year, but staff do keep an eye on the cemetery and we handle any incidents with dignity and care that happen.
And I take it by that, Madam CAO, that if there is a problem, the town would and staff would work on it immediately rather than waiting. Thank you.
Yes, that's right. And that's been our past practice.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, then all in favor? That's carried. Okay, so now we'll go on to Committee of the Whole report regarding Municipality of Wawa resolution. And there is a resolution. The council endorsed the Municipality of Wawa's resolution to call upon the Government of Canada to support Bill C-310 and enact amendments to subsections 118.062 and 118.072 of the Income Tax Act in order to increase the amount of tax credits for volunteer firefighting and search and rescue volunteer services from $3,000 to $10,000, and that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the Association of Fire Chiefs of Ontario and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. Is there a mover and seconder for the resolution? Moved by Grace, seconded by Duhaime. Any questions or comments on this one? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. All right, and then item 3, which is Committee of the Whole report regarding Association of Municipalities of Ontario resolution. There is a resolution that whereas current provincial municipal fiscal arrangements are undermining Ontario's economic prosperity and quality of life, and whereas nearly a third of municipal spending in Ontario is for services in areas of provincial responsibility and expenditures are outpacing provincial contributions by nearly $4 billion a year, and whereas municipal revenues such as property taxes do not grow with the economy or inflation, and whereas unprecedented population and housing growth will require significant investment investments in municipal infrastructure. And whereas municipalities are being asked to take on complex health and social challenges like homelessness, supporting asylum seekers, and addressing the mental health and addiction crisis. And whereas inflation, rising interest rates, and provincial policy decisions are sharply constraining municipal fiscal capacity. And whereas property taxpayers, including people on fixed incomes and small businesses, cannot afford to subsidize income redistribution programs for those most in need. And whereas the province can and should invest more in the prosperity of communities. And whereas municipalities and the provincial government have a strong history of collaboration, now therefore be it resolved that Council of the Town of Saugeen Shores urges the province of Ontario to commit to undertaking with the Association of Municipalities of Ontario a comprehensive social and economic prosperity review to promote the stability and sustainability of municipal finances across Ontario, and further that a copy of this motion be sent to the Premier of Ontario, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, Minister of Finance, and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. Is there a mover and seconder for the resolution? Moved by Davinsky, seconded by Stack. Is there questions or comments? Councillor Davinsky.
Just one fast question on process. Why aren't we sending this to all municipalities like the myriad requests we get? I know it's going to the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. Does that cover that?
I would think so. And it's important to note this wording comes directly from AMO. So all municipalities have already been circulated on this resolution via AMO. And so all of them have it already and they'll get it back through AMO. The Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Would it be appropriate to include our own MPP, Lisa Thompson, in the distribution list?
I think that it would be. We can.
Do I need to offer an amendment or can we just do it?
Did I get a mover and seconder? I did. Is it satisfactory to the mover and seconder that we add MPP Lisa Thompson to the distribution list?
Agreed.
I see nods from Stack and Davinsky. So that's a friendly amendment. Are there further questions or comments? I would just note that I think it's a good resolution. I appreciate the Association of Municipalities of Ontario putting this together. It's an important message to send, and we're just seeing more and more. I was at the Board of Health just the other day, and we were talking about the province of Ontario has frozen increases to health units at 1% again this year, and that's been the case for several years. In fact, it was at 0% for several years before that, where we've fallen consistently behind inflation. These are practically cuts to funding to public health. Municipalities are responsible for 25% of the cost of public health, and we're willing to pay that 25%. But if we can't increase that budget and get the province to, on their 75% share, pay the 4 or 5% in addition that it actually costs, then we can't increase the budget by that rate. And so in the end, public health services decline. And this is just one example of a myriad of examples of the same thing happening across the sector. It isn't even an effective download because it's constrained us from even increasing the budget in the way it should be. We almost have to cut. So anyway, this is an important message to send, and I appreciate AMO putting it out there. You've heard the resolution. I'll ask all in favor. That's carried. Okay. So now we're on to 9, report of municipal officers and committees. And the first one is a staff report on the Shipley Trail Landowner Land Use Agreement. There is a resolution, and the resolution is that council adopt a bylaw to authorize the 6 landowner/land use agreements between the town of Saugeen Shores and landowners along the Shipley Trail for the use of their lands for trail purposes. Is there a mover and seconder for the resolution? Moved by the Vice Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Halpin. Any questions to that resolution? Vice Deputy Mayor?
Just a comment, Mr. Mayor. I just want to thank Frank Burrows for the great job he's done with negotiating, chatting with those residents down there on Shipley. It's just wonderful that they're willing to continue on with that lease agreement for that parcel of land. That's a key connecting link between Gobles Grove and Port Elgin Beach, and we'll never want to lose that. And it's good to see also that letters of thank you are being sent out. So I just want to thank Frank for his great work, and thank you to the residents. It's great that they make that trail available to all the trail users in Saugeen Shores.
Yep, thank you for that. Further comments? Councillor Halpin?
I'd just like to echo those comments, and I'm a real promoter of our trail system, and people come here from all over Ontario to use our our trails and they really add something to our community. And it's also part of our bike friendly and our active transport plan. So thanks you for your work on that, Frank.
Absolutely. Agreed. And I would say, look, according to the report, there's some thank you letters for me to sign and send out, which I think is really great. I know council's asked for those in the past, so I'm glad staff has proactively put those together. And once we pass this tonight, we'll look forward to sending those to these landowners and thanking them for their continued contribution to our community. So you've heard the resolution. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? That's carried. And then we're on to second one, which is a staff report on the affordable housing on town-owned lands policy update. And there is a resolution. I'll read it and then I'll ask for a bit of an update from staff. The resolution is that council adopt the affordable housing on town-owned lands policy. Is there a mover and seconder for the resolution? Moved by the Vice Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Grace. Comments from the Manager of Development Services.
Oh, I didn't know if I was going to provide any, but I wanted to highlight, I think the main changes, which is really the reason why it's returned here from the January meeting. After receiving the comments from members as well as further consideration of the inputs and review of other material that I was provided with, there's three changes. The first I'll just highlight, and I want to read directly from the proposed policy under section 6A7. We've added a clause related to strengthening opportunities for partnerships with local housing providers. So it reads now, affordable housing builders and providers shall demonstrate competency and proven ability to design, build and operate affordable housing in a timely manner and engage and partner with local established affordable housing agencies, operators, or not-for-profit organizations providing housing or social services. Number two, we want to clarify how alternatives to town ownership can be considered. So there's a new section. I'll turn to page 5, highlighted in the underline. Although the town preference is to retain ownership, the town may consider alternative disposition of land for proposals which demonstrate exceptional, substantive, and formal qualities. And then the final changes related to the partnership, partnerships is just in the scoring matrix. We've proposed, some points systems so that if there is partners brought to the table, they score that for that and can improve their submission and the quality of the project. I also included, because there was some discussion about how this policy would fit into the overall administration of and review of projects and land. And so I provided a sample flow. I stress sample and I stress typical because there are variations and it could just be the nature of local or property specific issues. It could go in a different way, but the main point is that there are still quite a few opportunities for councils, not just direct input, but their direct consideration and control over projects. So I think I'll leave it there because I'm interested in to see if there's further discussion.
Okay, are there questions or comments about this one from members? Councillor Halpin.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you, thank you for the report. I believe that this is the council that's going to make the difference on affordable housing. We're going to make things happen with this. And this is a good start. And my main concern is when we look at the affordable housing, the flow chart, is that I still think that council needs to be directly involved in approving what we do with this land and even approving the proposals that are submitted. Now, I realize, well, first of all, to back that up a little bit, it's not like an ice rental where there'll be many of these things in a week. How many proposals are we really going to have to deal with in a year? So I don't think that the time frame, I don't think you can use the argument, well, we won't have enough time to negotiate with people. I don't believe that's a worthwhile reason for not allowing council to take part of that decision. We also meet 3 times a month. So I like this. It's hard to make a policy. It's hard to make a perfect policy that fits everyone. I understand that. But if council is making the decision, the policy doesn't have to be bulletproof, perfect, because we'll be looking at it, we'll be deciding. So I want to see council be making that decision. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Further comments? The Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, and through you, I would support what Councillor Halpin is saying, and it would show up, I guess, in the flow chart. You know, you've got the different legend there, and I guess the part that I got caught up on too was the selecting of proponents was a step in the process, and I think that council, you know, there's council direction on the issue, and then declaration of surplus lands certainly falls in our wheelhouse, but the selection of proponents, I would like to see that be more something that we have some engagement with, because I agree with Councillor Halpin that we have 3 meetings a month. We also would anticipate, hopefully we'll have some uptake on this, but I don't think it will be onerous in terms of the numbers of applicants. So I would like to see that adjusted. I appreciate that the matrix is here. That's one thing we talked about the last time this was before us. I still, you know, the language in the actual policy statement, there's one place where it says, it's in item D. Wait a second, where am I at here? It's the part about decisions to approve or refuse proposals. It reads agreements following an approval based on this policy, such as an agreement for purchase and sale, will be considered by council. I think that when we're dealing with public lands, you know, we need to be more than just a consideration. I think that there should be some strengthening of the language in here associated with the surplus land situation and the decision-making concerning the partners. I also found it a little bit confusing. There's 3 different ways that low and moderate income households are talked about. And I guess I would just ask for perhaps some clarification that we use similar language so that, you know, half of the median income or 60th percentile, and one says no more than 30% of gross annual income. There must be a way that we can kind of get them all to standardize so that they're understood in terms of what really we're trying to accomplish and what segment of the population we're hoping to provide some support to. So it's a little bit clearer what kind of person or what kind of income level would fit into this. But I do agree with Councillor Halpin. I also would appreciate at some point a little more information about the consultative process, because it does make mention about a consultative process that would be about engaging neighboring communities as well as council, and Indigenous peoples are mentioned as well too. You know, I'd appreciate knowing a little bit more about what that means, because I think, you know, we certainly have an interest in improving engagement with the public and getting a little bit of feedback. So it's good that it's here, but I don't really understand what it means. But I would be supportive of what Councillor Halpin is suggesting. Thank you.
Do you have any comments, any of that, the Manager of Development Services?
Yeah, I guess I'll start with that last part about consultative process. I mean, I think it's quite deliberate that we're not providing exposition as to what it specifically means, because each project we are going to be asking through the process how those proponents intend to consult. So the ones that do a good job or are explaining it well, that are evaluated, whether through this policy, are the ones that will be in part selected, and that'll be explained. So that's what I intend there. It's sort of like a strategic ambiguity, for lack of a better phrase. I think the second part related to what are the definitions of affordability, low and moderate income. I mean, these are the ones that I've provided as definitions. They're fairly, I think they're taken from the county's and I think they're standard relatively through CMHC, and maybe the phrasing is a little different, but they're deliberately written as a percentage of someone's income, and it's measured related to sort of, instead of average incomes, median incomes, which are a little more representative of segments of the population. I'm not a housing expert, but that's the reason we picked it, is that it's fairly fairly consistent throughout. And I guess, I guess I appreciate your comments on the delegation and the involvement because, I mean, that's why you're considering, oh yeah, there was the third part is the term consider. I mean, I guess it's a parlance of a bureaucrat like me is that council considering it is them providing direction. You consider it and you provide a resolution on the consideration. It's just maybe if you want to pick a different word, that's fine by me. So.
Okay, further comments from members, the Vice Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I think this is a great second draft. I think there's a lot of value to it. The process, the draft process flow, the process flow, I should say. I think it really illustrates that council. There's a lot of points there where we're going to have some input into the approval process, but I think it's a little contradictory from the policy where it delegates the authority to the CAO. I agree with Councillor Halpin and our deputy mayor that needs to be more consistent with how the flow chart, the draft flow at the bottom looks versus what it says in the policy. And that considered word, I like approved. I still think it should come back to council. I mean, this is land owned by the constituents, and it's something that's these decisions are really critical in terms of who we're approving for RFP, what developer we're working with, and what land is deemed surplus, what's not. And there's a lot of key major decisions in there. I think that council needs to be it needs to come back and not considered but approved. Jay, the matrix didn't change a lot from last time. I did share some comments at the last meeting about there's up to 50 points, I think, for a developer who was building 100% of the units. From an affordability standpoint, I'm not sure you're ever going to find a developer going to build a housing development that's 100% affordable. I don't think they're out there, and the developers I've talked to, anyways. I would have rather seen Jay, see you, Mr. Mayor, to Jay. When we talk about the number of points, 10 points to a developer for who's partner with the town or with Habitat or whoever they might be partnering with. I think that 10 points is really low. I would like that to see 50 points and 100% affordability lower than 50. It would be nice to see 100%, but you're not going to get that. And I just don't think it's realistic. So I don't think it's real, the matrix. So so I don't know how council feels about that, but I think more weight. If we don't have developers come on board and partner with us to help build these affordable units, we're not going to get it done, in my view. So is there a possibility, to you, Mr. Mayor, to Jay, that we could beef up the number of points awarded to a developer that's going to be partnering with for example, Habitat for Humanity or, other not-for-profits? Did you give that some thought, and can we beef that number up from the 10 points? I'd like to see a higher number.
Manager of Development Services?
Yeah, I think I explained in the last meeting is that this is a cumulative total that will be awarded. So yes, any individual component may be considered. If you take it in isolation, is only say 10% of the total, but the priority is affordability. I can think of a couple developers who would provide 100% affordable units. The County of Bruce Housing provides 100% of their projects to be affordable. So there is a developer potentially in the area. If they were to partner with somebody, we could certainly look at higher amounts, which is why it's weighted the heaviest. It's because the purpose is affordability. The purpose is a partnership would be great, which is why it's awarded some points, but it's not a determining factor. In fact, even the affordability isn't a determining factor. It just contributes at a greater rate than the others. And in reference to, you'd like to see it beefed up. Well, it's not my recommendation. But I did say in the last report, I think that this is an expression of council's intentions. So if council intends to do something, please provide that you could agree on that should be in the policy.
I can send you again some specific thoughts around that. Again, I know I probably supposed to have done it after the last meeting, but around the scoring tool, I just don't think we're quite there with the matrix yet, in my view. So I can't support this tonight, but because I think there are a few changes that need to be made.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Myatt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. I really like the policy. I think the changes that were suggested that you've implemented are really good. There's one change that wasn't suggested that I'm gonna just ponder on a little bit here out loud is the use of the word surplus. Are we stuck on that word when we want to take town-owned lands and reallocate them? Or can we use another word that more accurately defines what we're trying to do? Like when somebody sees surplus, it has a connotation and people think, oh, it's surplus, we don't need it anymore. It's surplus, it's disposable. And recent correspondence that we've all received recently, it means different things to different people, but surplus certainly has a connotation to it that says this is land that is no longer needed, it's disposable. Whereas if we used another term like it's available for reallocation, or it's something other that describes the land and we can designate it for reuse in a project like this or otherwise, that doesn't use the word surplus. Or is surplus the word that comes from the legislation that we're stuck on? That's the reason for it?
The clerk will answer that one.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Charbonneau. Yes, declaring land surplus, it is a legislative term. It has been in use for quite some time. It's used throughout the province whenever a municipality is looking to sell land, is that it is to be declared surplus.
Understood. It's just, I understand that the legislative requirement requires a declaration of surplus. But if we could add when we do declare something surplus, to add a descriptor, or when we're writing a procedure like this, that you could put in something that more accurately describes what we're trying to do, because we've all seen where people have misinterpreted what surplus means, and certainly we're not in any way, any land is not useful or is disposable. It's not what it means, but surplus has that. It's an old term. Obviously, it's been in the legislation for a long time, and maybe we need to challenge the government when they're going to do a change of legislation, that's a word that could be, you could use better words around that, but we'd have to have a better descriptor in there for what surplus really means.
Any other comments from the Manager of Development Services? You have a comment to that?
Well, just a comment is, I mean, sort of just echoing the previous comment about this is council's intention, and the framework is an expression of that. The framework does, I think, is the intended place for this policy, explaining what we're doing. You know, it's town-owned land, which has been identified for affordable, like I think we're trying to be as clear as we can. Where the first time the word surplus shows up is in the implementation when we are declaring the legislative process. So I appreciate the comment, Councillor Mayette, but it's not an argument. I guess I'm just saying I'm trying to be as sensitive as I can to the legislative requirements, but being clear as I can with the council's intention for the use of the land. So when we get through this process and there's our first property coming forward, we can, or we can provide a resolution that makes it clear what the intended purpose is. I would recommend that.
Okay, Councillor Grace, and then back to the.
One follow-up,
Councillor
or
Mayette.
even in the, when these procedures come out, there's a glossary. Like if the glossary had a definition of what surplus means and the possible iterations of what surplus connotates, might be helpful too. Thanks.
Okay, so I'll get Councillor Grace and then back to the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess my impression from reading this is that, and this is actually on the third page of the policy, that the goal or the preference is for the town to retain ownership, not to declare it surplus. Is that right?
Manager of Development Services.
I'm going to be outside of my, understanding of the law. The declaration of surplus land is a particularly prescribed, a legislative requirement. And there are certainly circumstances where you have to declare something surplus, even if you aren't selling it through a purchase and sale. An agreement longer than 20 years, for example.
Right,
But
as we've seen with other
previous
leases.
proponents, but
Yes.
there's certainly, again, we're establishing the sort of principles for affordable housing, and then relying on Municipal Act, Planning Act. I use the term competent administrative know-how. Hopefully that's not too cute or glib a term, but really it's going to be the way a corporation is administered is the key way of stitching it together to make sure the Municipal Act talks to the Planning Act, which talks to our community's needs. And I think that's having this expressed in this way is is a recommended way. I appreciate the dialogue as that I figure if this is not a, good second draft, we should be starting with these principles and bringing forward properties so council can evaluate them in a timely way.
Thanks, Jay. And I agree with Councillor Mayette in terms of the usefulness of having a glossary just to lay all of that out for us and for the public. Thanks.
Thank you, the Deputy Mayor, and then Councillor Halpin.
Councillor Grace expressed what I was going to say. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Halpin.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. I like the idea of the town retaining ownership of land, and I would give an example. Let's say Bruce County wanted to build some affordable housing here, which we would welcome. Rather than give them the land, we could lease them the land for $1 a year, and then we retain ownership of that land, if that's possible. There are methods like that where we can possibly retain ownership. However, that won't work for every instance. I just want to make a comment about matrix, and I said this last time and I'll say it again. Dealing with the Ministry of Education, when they looked at the Port Elgin High School's SDSS and it needed renovating or tearing down, they said, if we tear it down, you only have 550 students now, so we can only build you a school for 560 students, even though we know in 8 years, you're going to have 1,100 students. We can never have a matrix or anything that holds us so blindly to it. And I'm gonna say mindlessly. Like that was a mindless act that they were going to do. Okay. And that's why I think that the decision on the proponent and the deal should be made by council. We have the guiding principles here. They don't have to be perfect. But as Jay said, we can start getting people through. We can start looking at these proposals. And if we're making the final decision here, it's a sacred trust, this land. They'll be made in the most transparent, most public way they possibly can. And I think that the citizens deserve that. And I think that this should be a decision made by council. I'd be ready to pretty much approve this proposal as it is, as long as the decision was made by council. Thank you.
Okay, I got Councillor Duhaime and then the Vice Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, through Mayor. Am I interpreting the process chart wrong? But it seems like there's lots of council decision points of implementing the agreement we would not do just from our duties as council members. So I think that flow chart covers everything. Am I wrong? Maybe some clarification, Jay? Thanks.
Manager of Development Services.
Yeah, certainly. It's a good opportunity to just go through this, if not in more detail, just to explain that this is sort of a sample process. Certainly, I'll just walk through it briefly. Is that nothing happens until council's identified property. Council identifies the property. So staff would bring to get forward a report that suggests some property. We've done this already with the Blue Water lands, or they're referred to the 7 acres by the Y daycare. Council's considered it and identified as a candidate land. What do we do with that? The idea is, well, let's figure out how to apply this policy. So we're in the middle section, which is really, I think, the meat of the policy, is that we prepare an RFP based on the principles and the policies, send it out. Proponents come back, it's reviewed and through a normal corporate administrative process and evaluated, and then we can engage. The reason why it's to be delegated is there's a sort of a administrative quality for being able to work directly with the developer as needed. And I appreciate it. We meet regularly, but it's just not how it's perceived from proponents. This is just my understanding. Don't take my word for it if you don't want to. But once the proponent's selected and work through the terms, the details, we bring it forward for a couple more council opportunities. One is to declare it surplus if we're going to be selling it, or if we're going to be entering into an agreement for longer than 20 years. There could be other needs, or it's a modified declaration because only part of the land. I guess what I'm pointing out is there's a lot of variability just into the flow, which is why it's here. But the final, the zoning bylaw, I mean, it's parallel, it's related obviously, because none of these properties that the town owns are usually pre-zoned. So there's an opportunity for council to directly involve with the built form. How big how big is the building? Where is it situated? And then the site planning, as you already contribute to. But then ultimately, the agreement would still have to be considered. We cannot have that delegated under the current regime because I don't think the legislation is supportive of doing that without further analysis. So we provide a requirement that the delegation can only go up to that purchase and sale arrangement. So I don't know if I answered your question, Councillor DeHaan, but it's certainly meant to be cover the bases, but still opportunities to flex, like maybe the zoning happens up front. If you already know what you want, you just start the application process today and it ends up happening now as opposed at the end of the process, as one example.
I might just come in with a comment. Now, I haven't spoken on it yet, and there's been some good comments from all members. I know, as we spoke about last time, there's some struggling with the notion of, where does council's decision-making come in and where it's appropriate. I think that what's been done here and identified here is good in that it creates lots of opportunity for council to be involved in the decision-making process, but also starts to head us in the policy direction, which I think we're making just in general in terms of affordable and attainable housing, which is front-ending the policy decision-making, the council decision-making at the beginning of the process, setting out processes in a general sense in the absence of a specific application to say, this is what the public wants to see, these are the parameters in which we'll operate, and then removing the political process from the specific situation. We know, and this is just a fact, in the planning process, for example, this is the reason why we're proposing a community permit planning system, because we know in the planning process that the way it works now leads to refusals of affordable housing projects, right? We have a process which ends up with a political decision at the 11th hour or 11:59, and everybody is focused on the specific project, and there are neighbors involved, and those neighbors are very often unhappy, and that political resistance leads to rejection. And this is a fact well established across our country. It's not a Saugeen Shores issue. It's an issue everywhere. It's a big part of why affordable housing doesn't get built. And so what we're talking about here is actually very reflective of what we're already working on with the community permit planning system, saying the community deserves input. The public deserves input. Council needs to steer a process, and that input should come at the beginning without a neighbor being involved, without a specific project. We're saying these are the general principles. These are the rules of the game. Everyone understands them up front. The public does, potential proponents do, council does. They enter that process, and then they arrive, and then using that, they get, in the case of a community permit planning system, a permit from staff. This is what we're setting up. Or in this case, a proponent selection on the basis of a formula that council with public input has established. That removes that political situation at the end, which kills projects. So it removes a established and known barrier to the establishment of affordable housing. I think it's a smart policy direction. It's a direction in which housing decision making is heading, because it's the kind of thing that gets housing actually built for people who actually need it. And we have not been doing that, right? Because our processes have not succeeded at getting it done and we are already accepted this in the town of Saugeen Shores because our community permit planning system is an example of that. We're pursuing that. That's why we're pursuing it. So I think this creates a good balance. Council initiates the process, can't start without council. It's a piece of land. Nobody can do anything with it without this council's approval. Can't start nothing. And then if the council says, yes, you can proceed with our staff, they start making their way through a process defined by this rubric here that we're talking about in public and that the public can have input on. And then we have several decisions there. And you're not going to do a deal with somebody for less than 21 years. right? So there's very likely going to be a surplus land decision in there where council will say this can go forward or it can't. And then there's an execution of an agreement. You can't sell it, can't be sold without council's final approval, just can't be done. So we would have to come back in to do that too. And in the meantime, and all of these steps in the process that are square in this flow chart come with council input. So we'll receive information reports and updates, and we'll have an opportunity at all those stages in public in this venue to say whatever you want to say. But it does start with a picture up front. Everybody knows it and works its way down to a decision on the basis of that and removes the potential political impediments to getting these affordable housing projects constructed. And I think I just strongly think we have to do everything we can to make that happen. So I support the policy, and I'm thankful for the work that staff has done with it. I don't mean to disparage the comments of you, my colleagues. I think smart comments, and I appreciate your concerns. And certainly, I think it's and nothing that's been said has been inappropriate. And as far as I'm concerned, I think folks are right to be concerned about these things. I just have some strong views on it. So I've expressed them now, and thank you for giving me a moment to do that. And the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. And through you, you make some good points, and I don't think any of us sitting around the table are really intending to somehow disrupt this momentum about doing something to contribute to the creation of affordable housing in our community. I'm not supportive of the way that this flow chart reflects that the selection of a proponent would not be a council decision. You brought it up yourself that these are going to go beyond 21 years. Surplus land is going to be involved. I think it behooves us to make sure that we understand, if we're going to be declaring land surplus, whether it's for a long-term lease or selling it, that we know who we're dealing with. And so my stumbling block is that particular line in the flow chart isn't a diamond. It's just a process box. And I believe that, anything that takes us out that far into the future, it would be helpful, I believe, to staff too, to know that council has agreed on this. And then that removes that bit of conversation from the community that it has been a council decision. So that's my stumbling block mainly on this. But, there's a lot of good stuff in here. And I don't think any of us are trying to derail it in a big way. We just want to make sure that, where public land is involved for a very good public goal, that council is involved where we should be involved, in my opinion. Thank you.
If there's, I think what we'll do is come down to a vote on this thing. We have to give some clear direction one way or the other on it here. And so we'll see if there's a couple final comments, but then we'll make our way to a vote here. The Vice Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, I can't support the report as it's written. There was four things. I was going to send them in. I won't be supporting this recommendation tonight, but I don't think anyone's disagreeing with you, Mr. Mayor. There's a lot of great stuff in here, and this is a great start. And we will get there to where we need to get to. But I think the process flow chart does have some good touch points. But I agree with the Deputy Mayor and Councillor Halpin. That needs to be tightened up about final approval. And I just don't think it's clear enough with that diamond as Deputy Mayor spoke to. So I think we need to beef up the personally points for the public-private partnerships. I think it needs to be more heavier weighted than it is. I think that the council approval thing is important. I think that we need a statement of flexibility based on the uniqueness of the property. For example, Three Sheets Brewing property, 25 homes, Blue Water Lands, 200, 300? I just think I think there needs to be in the policy, needs to be a statement of flexibility based on the uniqueness of the property. I think that's missing. I said this at the last meeting and it wasn't picked up on by staff. I still think that's important. that each piece of property is very unique, very different. I think the process chart needs to be more closely aligned to how the policy is written. Councillor DeHaan mentioned that there's a lot of touch points. There are in the flow chart, but I think they don't line up with what's said in the policy. If you read the policy closely, and it talks about delegating authority to the CAO, they're contradictory in my view. So I can't support it. I just think and you've heard enough comments around the table, Mr. Mayor, tonight, that I think there's too many, well, take the vote, but I think there's too many questions still.
Okay. Yeah, Councillor Halpin.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. I again feel like if there's more council involvement, we have to be less worried about the matrix and making the matrix just be perfect, okay? And what would make me happy if you took the little triangle above where it says select proponent and you made that into a diamond instead of a rectangle, I would be able to support this. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, Councillor Halpin.
I'm sorry, just one more thing. Like, I have a great deal of respect for our staff. And I got to tell you, I get it almost, sometimes I feel like, oh, I don't want to sound critical. I don't want to hurt people's feelings saying that I want that control. I don't want you to have it. I want to tell you that sometimes I don't like doing that. Okay. And I don't want anyone to take any offense to that. I'm trying to do what I feel is best for the citizens. And I feel that if these decisions are made at this table, man, it would be so transparent. It would be so good. Thank you.
No, I don't think anybody's taking it that way, Councillor Halpin. It's important. These are important conversations, and you got to get what your feelings are out on the table and do those things. Say the Director of Development Services wants to say a word. The Director.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to address the point about flexibility, to note that the criteria evaluation scoring section in the policy says that each RFP will delineate, I'm going to do some dots to not read every word, but it says evaluate its context and setting, any special considerations identified by council when establishing the town-owned lands. So there's a recognition that each site will have its own unique characteristics, and the process will have to adapt to that. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So if there's nothing further, we've had a good conversation on this, so I'll ask all in favor. And opposed? That's defeated. All right, so we'll move on to item number 3, which is staff report on the Centennial Pool amending agreement. And there is a resolution that council pass a bylaw to authorize the amending agreement between the town of Saugeen Shores and the Blue Water District School Board to extend the existing agreement for 2 years from September 1, 2023 through August 31st, 2025. Is there a mover and seconder? By the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Halpin. Any questions or comments to that resolution? I'm going to just ask for maybe a bit of input from, I think maybe from the Manager of Recreation about what we're doing in terms of engaging with the Blue Water District School Board. Well, first, maybe 2 things. One, about what we're doing over the course of this year about decommissioning the Centennial Pool as we prepare for transitioning to the new facility, and what engagement are we having with the Blue Water District School Board on the future of that facility. It's not necessarily to say that they are the only interested party, but they are, it is a one building effectively, so they would be an interested party in the future there. Are we having those conversations at this point?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. We haven't had those conversations with the school board yet related to what will happen with the property when we remove ourselves from the pool. And subsequently, the decommissioning of the Centennial Pool, that's a conversation we'll probably be looking to have around later this year into the fall, once we have a better idea of when the facility will be ready to move into and open, and then we can start those conversations with them. The existing agreement, as it's written, provides us with the details related to the notice we need to provide when we're ready to vacate that premises.
Okay, Councillor Help.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. That old pool would make a great gym that the high school is desperately lacking with its growth. Thank you.
Well, hopefully the board is listening. If there's nothing further, then you've heard the resolution, and I'll ask all in favor. That's carried. Okay, so then we will move on to bylaws, and we have 3 bylaws there for consideration. Anybody want to consider any of those on an individual basis? Don't see any requests for that, so I'll read the resolution. It's resolved that bylaws 16, 2024, 17, 2024, and 18, 2024 are hereby read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed and sealed this 26th day of February, 2024. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Halpin, seconded by Davinsky. Any discussion? Seeing none, then all in favor? It's carried. And finally, we have confirmatory bylaw, item 12, and it's resolved that bylaw 19, 2024, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Town of Saugeen Shores, is hereby read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed and sealed this 26th day of February, 2024. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Grace. All in favor? That is carried. And finally, we have a resolution that this regular council meeting of February 26, 2024 hereby adjourns at 9:31 p.m. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Halpin, seconded by the Vice Deputy Mayor. All in favor? Council stands adjourned. Have a good evening, everybody.